There. Hi. Hello and good evening. Good, really in the middle of the night here in Sweden, and good almost noon in Australia if you're watching from there, and everything in between. Uh, don't worry about me being up in the middle of the night because I've been working like a crazy man on the farm and then streaming, so my sleep schedule is a bit off. First of all, testing sound. As you might see, I had to get rid of the microphone because it started to be very, very bad to me after just a few months of purchasing these obnoxiously expensive headphones. So I'm now doing back to the webcam sound. Yeah, okay, sounds good. Sounds good. Okay, great. We will play catch up with this trial. It is the trial Iowa versus Henry Dinkins, who is a suspect of the kidnapping and murder of. Oh, I'm so sorry. How do I pronounce this? How do I pronounce this? Breasia Terrell, Breasia Terrell, Breasia Terrell. I'm not sure. Sorry for everybody if I butchered that name. 2020, Breasia Terrell disappeared, was found, sadly deceased. Mr. Dinkins was not a suspect until he was brought in on other charges, and all of a sudden he was a suspect. And that has led to this trial. Henry Dinkins shows a bench trial, which means this is the first bench trial on this channel. So that will be interesting for everybody. I hope this means that since there is no jury, there will be less of shenanigans, since they now have to present everything for the judge. Less emotions, more facts is what I'm expecting. Now, will I get it? I don't know. I have no idea. But they are already on day 6. So we will go through this over the weekend as well. We're starting now with the judge presenting, and then the opening statements. That will be enough for today because it's getting late in the United States and it's getting really early in Sweden. What will happen tomorrow, Friday, is that I will start this around 9 a.m. Eastern time. If I start earlier, people on the West Coast, that will be a bit too early. But then we will stream between 6 and 8 hours of trial. That means we can go through a lot. We don't have to stop for breaks. We don't have to stop for lunch. So everybody will be well prepared for tomorrow. 8 p.m. Central at the moment. Okay, thank you, Wim. Thank you, Wim. So that is where we will go. Oops. So we will actually start quite immediately. Oh, yeah. Housekeeping. Like, subscribe, check that bell thingy if you actually are getting notifications, all the notifications on this channel. And this is way outside of my normal streaming hours, so I don't expect that big of a turnout. But looking at yesterday's stream that started late, it was that It did good numbers with rewatch crew. So I expect that the same will happen here. Now, I don't mind good numbers, but I don't expect it. All right, enough of that. Boom. Let's get going. And everybody, let me know if sound is okay in this stream as well. Thank you. Here we go.
All rise. District Court of Iowa is now in session. Honorable Judge Latham presiding.
You may be seated.
Yeah, I can do more sound.
Thank you.
Okay, boosted up to max. Max. Let's hope sound stays that way. Let me know if sound gets weird.
Good morning, everyone. We're here in the matter of State of Iowa versus Henry Dinkins, case number FECR 415636. Mr. Dinkins is present, and he is represented by his attorneys Chad Freese and Joel Waters. The state of Iowa today is represented by Kelly Cunningham, and I understand Assistant County Attorney Liz O'Donnell will be also representing the state. Before we start today, I would like to start with a couple of admonishments for both sides in this case. I'm asking both sides to advise their witnesses that they shall not be viewing any of the live streaming of this proceedings, and they shall not view that until they are released by the court as a witness in this case. Further, I understand
yes, witnesses,
that,
don't do that.
Open courtroom, and although it is a bench trial, I expect the same decorum in the courtroom as I would in any trial that I preside over, and I will ask for that respect of the court. Additionally, I would advise everyone that is viewing this trial within the courtroom, they're also admonished that they should not have any contact with any witnesses during the course of the trial or reach out to them in any way during the course of the trial. This trial is going to be conducted as cleanly as possible, so everyone has a fair trial in this matter. The court would first like to address outstanding rulings on motions made by both parties in this case. We had motions on Monday. A majority of the motions were already ruled on at that time, but I would like to address those rulings that are outstanding.
Okay.
I'd like to first address the state's motion to introduce other crimes, wrongdoings or acts of evidence pursuant to Iowa Rule of Evidence 5.404B. That was filed on July.
Of course they want to do, even in a bench trial. Please, judge, tell them to go do something else. Please, please, here's the thing. Even the world's most heinous criminals deserves a fair trial, due process. And even if he is guilty of 99 out of 100 things that person is accused of, due process says you have to treat every separate crime as he was innocent unless proven guilty in a court of law. Because that 100 crime, say, speculatively, it's this crime. If he still is convicted and it turns out he didn't do it, that means the prosecution had wasted time and money prosecuting and convicting this guy and is letting the actual killer loose. That is why it's really necessary to follow the proceedings correctly. So please, judge, don't allow in prior acts.
July 22nd of this year. I'm going to deny that state's motion.
Thank you.
The court finds the prejudicial effect and undue prejudice to Mr. Dinkins is too great and is not outweighed by the probative value of this evidence. But I will advise the state, if the state determines that this evidence should be presented as a result of how the case proceeds, the state may renew their motion. I will next address the defendant's motion that was filed on July 25th of this year. That was precluding the state from offering any evidence of the defendant's purchase of bleach. I'm going to deny that motion filed by the defense. The court finds that this evidence is relevant to the facts of the case and may be confirmed by testimony of witnesses presented by the state. And the defense will have the opportunity to challenge the evidence through cross-examination. Next, the court addresses the defendant's motion to suppress that was filed.
Everybody bought bleach in 2020 of some sort. Bleach wipes. I use bleach for washing down my bathroom. I mean, everybody buys bleach. So I still don't get why that is an evidence in itself. Because speculatively again, that poor girl, everybody, by the way, everybody wants justice for this girl. Everybody does. Let's just say that straight on the line. Everybody wants justice for this girl. Bleach is not evidence in itself. If I would rather have it the other way around, that the prosecution, if evidence comes forward that makes this relevant, then they can bring it up. But if not, screw it. But let's continue. I have to go back a bit to see what the next one was.
Through cross-examination. Next, the court addresses the defendant's motion to suppress that was filed on the same date, that being July 25th of this year. That motion is also denied. The court finds that this interview was not a custodial interrogation. Although the defendant's phone was removed from the room, it is clear from the video that he could have access to the phone. Even during the course of the interview, his phone rang and the officer allowed him to view who was calling, and the defendant actually stated he did not need to answer that phone call. And as far as any control of his keys, that was not done until just moments before he requested an attorney. The fact is, the defendant voluntarily came to the police station. He was not summoned down. Next, the purpose of the interview was just simply to gather information about a child that had disappeared and his efforts to locate her and his activities during that time frame. And the defendant was never confronted of any evidence of his guilt during the course of that interview. And at no time did the officer indicate he was not able to leave. He was even allowed to use the restroom and was knocking on the door and was able to exit the room. Clearly, the officer was only trying to gather information. And once the defendant requested to speak with an attorney, the interview was completed and no further questioning.
Again.
Next, this court will address the state's motion in limine that was filed on July 28th of this year. We'll address paragraph 5, 5A, Roman numeral 1, that was previously granted at the previous hearing. Roman numeral 2, that motion will be also granted. The court does not find the relevance of this information. And if the defense may request the court to reconsider that upon how the case proceeds. Roman numeral 3, granted. The court again does not find the relevance of this information to the case, and there's no evidence that the defendant knew of this information prior to the incident in question. Paragraph 4, that motion is also granted. There is no relevance whatsoever to this case concerning that information or facts. Paragraph 5 and 6 is also granted. There's no support as to how this information is needed to address any credibility issues of that witness. And all the information or facts occurred after the events alleged in this matter. And also in relation to all of those paragraphs, the court finds that there's no probative value in this, and it is only outweighed by the confusing of the issues in this case, possible wasting of time and undue delay. And paragraph C is also granted. Again, this information clearly would only confuse the issues during the course of this trial. The defendant only became aware of this information following his arrest as to the information that has been provided to this court at this time. And again, any probative value of this is outweighed by that confusion. The defense, of course, may renew these, may address the court and request that this information or facts be presented during the course of the trial based on the evidence presented at trial. I would ask each counsel, do you believe that all motions have been addressed at this time?
The state does believe all motions have been addressed, Your Honor.
Yes, Your Honor.
At this time, Ms. Cunningham, I'd ask that you read the trial information then.
In the Iowa District Court for Scott County, State of Iowa plaintiff versus Henry E. Dinkins defendant. Criminal number FECR 415636, the trial information. Comes now Michael J. Walton as County Attorney of Scott County, State of Iowa, and in the name and by the authority of the State of Iowa, accuses Henry E. Dinkins of the following crimes. Count 1, murder in the first degree. The said Henry E. Dinkins, on or about the 10th day of July 2020, in the County of Scott and State of Iowa, did commit murder in the first degree, in violation of Section 707.2 of the Code of Iowa, by willfully, deliberately, and with premeditation, kill B.T., as defined in Section 707.2, subparagraph 1A of the Code of Iowa, or did kill B.T. while participating in a forcible felony, to wit, kidnapping in the first degree, in violation of Section 707.2, subparagraph 1B of the Code of Iowa. Count 2, kidnapping in the first degree. The said Henry E. Dinkins, on or about the 10th day of July 2020, in the County of Scott and State of Iowa, did confine or remove B.T. without authority or consent or by deception, with the intent to inflict serious injury or subject her to
Hi,
sexual
Brandon.
abuse, and in so doing caused her death in violation of Section
No, I haven't
710.2
seen
of the
Valhalla
Code of
since
Iowa.
he
A true
went
information,
offline with Flux. He
Michael
might be
J.
asleep.
Walton, County Attorney. To these charges, the defendant has entered pleas of not guilty.
Thank you, Ms. Cunningham. You may proceed with your opening statement.
Thank you, Your Honor. And Your Honor, Ms. O'Donnell is now able to join us, so I would just ask her to come to the council table if she would.
She may.
All right, those were the charges. Let's continue with opening statements for the prosecution. But first, a swoop. I have to remember to do that because, yeah, putting out all the stops and stuff like that afterwards is not fun if I don't have clear marks. There, let's continue.
May it please the court. Counsel, Mr. Dinkins. Your Honor, the facts that you're going to hear about involve individuals who were involved in some type of family relationship. And initially what I'm going to do is I'm going to identify the various parties, describe the relationship that existed amongst the various parties, and from there then I'll walk through the facts of this particular case. Breasia Terrell, during the period of July of 2020, was a 10-year-old girl. Her mother is Aisha Langford. Breasia had an older brother with the initials of CS, who was 13 during this period of time, and she had a younger brother by the name of DL, who was 8 years of age. Henry Dinkins is the biological father of DL. He is not the biological father of Breasia Terrell, and he is not the biological father of the older boy, CS, who was 13 at the time. Aisha Langford is going to get on the stand and she's going to testify that she met Henry Dinkins when she was around 18 or 19 years of age. And by virtue of the relationship that they had, she became pregnant, and that's when she had conceived DL. As far as describing the relationship that she had with Henry Dinkins over the course of DL's life, she will testify that he was not a father who was actively engaged in the child's life. He was not an individual who would spend a lot of time with his son. He was not an individual that his son would go visit on a regular occasion. In fact, he was not an individual who was actively providing regular support to the family. At any rate, with that being said, that takes us to the time frame of June of 2020. Now, during the summer of 2020, Aisha Langford will testify that, in fact, there was opportunities to spend time at an activity where Henry Dinkins was located at. There were cookouts that were taking place. That would have happened during June of 2020. She and the children were participants in that cookout that Mr. Dinkins was responsible for putting on. And then during that period of time, Aisha Langford had the opportunity to meet a young woman by the name of Andrea Culberson. Andrea Culberson was a woman who was the girlfriend of Henry Dinkins, and she will testify that she had been involved in a 6-year relationship with Henry Dinkins. Now, Andrea Culberson, she lived over at the Jersey Meadow Apartments. The address is 2744.
Yes, this is a bench trial.
Jersey Meadow Apartments, number 8. And that was an apartment that she was sharing with Henry Dinkins. With the backdrop of what had occurred in June of 2020, Aisha Langford will testify that around July 8th, she was traveling in her car with her son, DL, and happened to see the defendant travel past them and pull into a quick shop. DL expressed an interest in wanting to spend some time with his father. That prompted Aisha Langford to pull into the quick shop, engage Mr. Dinkins in a conversation, and indicate to him that he needed to spend some time with his son. By virtue of that conversation, Mr. Dinkins indicated that he would take the child, for a few days and spend some time with him. And so arrangements had been made for him to call to come pick up DL. And the date that that particular event played out was actually on July 9th of 2020. Now, Aisha was actively employed. She worked at the Checkers located on East Locust. And just for purposes of perspective, because this will become important.
For you who have been around for a while, this you might see the difference between an opening statement towards the judge or if it was a jury. This is more factual. It's here's this, here's this, here's this, here's this. So hopefully it will stay that way, which will make it a bit faster and a bit more efficient. But you never know. You never know. Let's continue.
Later on in testimony. If you think of the area where Sudlow Junior High is located at, there on Locust Street, and just about a half block down the street to the east, that's the Checkers that Aisha Langford worked at. She actually was working on the morning and afternoon of July 9th when Henry Dinkins had responded to her mother, Danita Gardner's residence to pick up Detorius. And relative to the plans that existed, the plans very simply were for Henry Dinkins to take his son and only his son. Aisha Langford will testify that while during her relationship, when she became pregnant with DL and Breasia was about 2 years of age, he was not a father figure to Breasia. Breasia had a different father. And so then when Henry Dinkins responded to Danita Gardner's residence somewhere around 11 o'clock that morning to pick up Detorius, the circumstances changed. Aisha will testify that Detorius is very close to his sister Breasia. And quite honestly, they are attached at the hip to one another. Detorius expressed an interest for his sister Breasia, and I should say DL, expressed an interest for his sister Breasia to come along. Ms. Gardner took the position that that was an issue that would need to be discussed with the children's mother once she got home. Breasia was very much interested in being able to go with her brother because it was going to be a fun outing. And actually the 13-year-old boy, CS, expressed an interest in being able to go along as well. Henry Dinkins indicated that Breasia was welcome to come along, but he indicated that the 13-year-old boy, CS, could not come along, and the reason that he offered up for that was there was not enough room in his car for the 3 children. The day that he picked Detorius up and Breasia came along, he was operating a black Camaro, and that black Camaro had seating both for front seat passengers and back seat passengers. At any rate, Mr. Dinkins left the Gardner residence with DL and with Breasia, and then through testimony or statements provided by Mr. Dinkins and even information provided by DL, who was later interviewed through the Davenport Police Department, they both described going over to a residence that was a friend of Mr. Dinkins. This individual was identified as Vincent Howard, who lived on Taylor Street. They went over. There was time spent there at the Howard residence. Both of the children spent the afternoon playing video games. Mr. Dinkins left the residence for a period of time, came back, and then after they finished spending time
Thank
there
you, Melissa.
at the Howard
Thank you.
residence, Mr. Dinkins took the 2 children over to 2744 on East 53rd Street to the apartment that he shared with Andrea Fullerson. Now, at this point in time, I want to discuss the location of that apartment complex so that the court understands where it's located. On 53rd, we have Costco. The Jersey Meadow apartment complex is actually that apartment complex which is directly to the west of Costco. so it would be on the north side of the street. When Henry got back to the apartment complex, they all went inside. I think it's important to describe the layout of the apartment, because that will be something that will become the topic of discussion later on. Apartment number 8 actually was a second level apartment. Now, this particular complex is not the type of apartment complex where you have, a common entryway and a common hallway that individuals would use to access apartments on a first floor or apartments on a second floor. In this particular apartment complex, each apartment has its own individual dedicated door for entry into the apartment. So that if you live in a second story apartment, when you walk in that front door, you have a staircase inside the apartment that you take up to that second floor. Apartment number 8, if you enter that door, and on the right side of what would be that exterior wall would be the staircase. When you get to the top of the staircase, and then if you look over to the left, it's an open area that would consist of the living room, the kitchen, and dining room combination. There was only one bedroom in apartment number 8. And so the front door, if it's, to the one wall of the apartment, when you go up the stairs, the door into that bedroom actually is just set off just a little bit further to the left, and you go into that bedroom. In order to utilize the restroom in that apartment, that requires an individual to walk into that bedroom, because the bathroom is only accessible through the bedroom. And that becomes another critical point that I'll talk about later in my opening statement. After Mr. Dinkins and the children got back to the apartment, it was a normal evening. Andrea Culberson, Mr. Dinkins' girlfriend, she works for AT&T, and she actually works out of her home. She was working till sometime around 7:30 that evening. While she was working, Breasia was very, very interested in the type of work that she was doing, and Ms. Culberson was showing her how she performed her responsibilities for AT&T. Detorius was playing video games in the living room. Andrea Culberson's desk where she works is set up in the bedroom. So Breasia was in the bedroom, and at some point in time, Breasia was playing video games as well, but within the bedroom. Now, one of the things that Andrea Culberson will speak to, and that DL may speak to, is the fact that Henry Dinkins was spending time in the bedroom with Breasia while she played video games. Andrea Culberson will testify that the three of them, herself, Mr. Dinkins, and Breasia were in the bedroom, and they were playing a game together. And that's essentially how the evening was playing out. Now, when Aisha Langford got off of work from Checkers late that afternoon, she had been notified by her mother that Henry Dinkins had taken Breasia. And so therefore, there would be the need to pack up clothes for the children. Aisha went back to the residence. She packed up a bag of clothing for Breasia, and she packed up clothing for Detorius, which would have included pajamas for both of the children. And I make that point for a reason, because that will become the subject of conversation as I proceed through my opening statement. Aisha responds to the apartment complex. This was not a complex that she was familiar with. She'd never been to the Culberson apartment before. At any rate, when she responded to the complex, she called to notify the parties that she was out in the parking lot, and Breasia came down to gather the clothing. Mom had the family pet with them, the dog. Breasia was really excited about it. In fact, Breasia wanted to take the dog with her up to the apartment. Mom had to call her back and say, no, the family pet's going home. But at any rate, it was one of those, give the clothes, love you, have a wonderful time. and then Aisha left with Breasia going back inside the apartment complex, or I should say apartment number 8, with the clothing. After Aisha left the Jersey Meadow apartment, she took a right-hand turn on 53rd, so she's traveling west. The weather that night is also an issue that becomes very important to talk about. Because as she was traveling north and got to the area of North Hyde, there was a significant thunderstorm that broke out. And it was raining so hard that her windshield wipers would not keep up. So she had to pull over into a driveway and wait until the rain subsided before she went back to her apartment. And I believe she was staying with Benita Gardner. The family was in transition and then they were moving back. She got back to the apartment, was very tired, having worked all day, took a bath, and very simply, she fell asleep on the couch and she was out for the evening. At some point, unbeknownst to her, the children, DL and Breasia, neither of which had cell phones that they could take with them to the Culberson apartment. She had received a telephone call from Henry Dinkins' phone that was unanswered. And then the caller became very apparent because then there was a text message that came through from Breasia saying, "Good night, Mommy, I love you." All right. So that was somewhere around 10, 11 o'clock in the evening. As far as how the evening played out at the Culberson apartment, leading up to bedtime, each of the children took baths in the bedroom separately. They were fed some dinner, and then Detorius and Breasia were to sleep in the bedroom on the bed. Miss Culberson had a blow-up mattress that was out in the living room on the floor where she and Mr. Dinkins were to sleep. Breasia was the first one to go to bed. And from the living room, you could actually look through the door of the bedroom and you could see the bed. Because if you're standing at the doorway of the bedroom, very simply, you look forward and the bed is straight ahead of you. And then the headboard of the bed actually is right underneath a big window. That window actually looks out into the parking lot of the apartment complex, and that will become very important for later discussions that I'm going to have in my opening statement. So Breasia goes to bed first. Andrea Culberson lays down to go to sleep. Detorius, she can hear Mr. Dinkins say to him that he has so much time to play the video game and that he's going down to bed. And then Detorius was in the bedroom asleep. When Miss Culberson went to sleep, the last that she knew of Mr. Dinkins and his whereabouts was that he was there in the living room on the couch. Miss Culberson is a very heavy sleeper, and she'll testify to that. At 3 a.m. in the morning, she woke up because she needed to use the bathroom. When she woke up, she discovered that Mr. Dinkins was not there in the living room. That seemed odd to her. She got up, went into the bedroom. She noticed DL sleeping at the foot of the bed, but where little Breasia had fallen asleep on the right-hand side and toward the top of the bed, there were simply the covers that had been folded over and there was no child there. There was a sense of alarm. She went to the bathroom to use the bathroom, but she decided to get her glasses and put her glasses on to make sure that Breasia wasn't there. And Breasia was not there. Mr. Dinkins wasn't there and Breasia wasn't there. Ms. Culberson will testify that she had a very uneasy feeling about that. So then she stayed up in the living room, sitting in the dark. Now at 3:30 a.m. in the morning, and this is a time specific, because she had looked at a clock that was on her desk that said it was 3:30 in the morning, she heard Mr. Dinkins very quietly open the door and very quietly come up the stairs into the apartment. And she wanted to know where he was at and where Breasia was at. Mr. Dinkins wasn't really responding to questions other than just to say something very circumspect. He went into the bedroom, flipped on a light, and then went to his closet. Now, if we talk about the bedroom itself, when you're standing there in the doorway, on the left-hand side, that's where you would access the bathroom. And then again, there is a closet on that side. That was Miss Culberson's closet where she kept her personal belongings. On the right side of the bed, there was a closet where Mr. Dinkins kept his things. She will testify that Mr. Dinkins went to that closet. He was rummaging around through things. She's wanting to know where Breasia is at. He's rummaging through things. She happens to pull back the curtain to the window and looks out, and little Breasia is standing by a maroon Chevy Impala on the passenger side of the vehicle. Now, there are going to be three vehicles that the court's going to be hearing about. The maroon Chevy Impala, which was a vehicle that was used by Mr. Dinkins and Ms. Culberson. And then the black Camaro. The maroon Chevy Impala had characteristics that become very important relative to investigations that was conducted by the Davenport Police Department. There were dark tinted windows on the Impala. And then on the trunk, on the right-hand side, there was a white sticker. On the front of the vehicle, in the area of the windshield, there was a front sticker. And so those characteristics were the characteristics used by law enforcement to identify that maroon Chevy Impala when steps were taken to identify locations that Henry Dinkins had traveled during the early morning hours of June 10th, and we're talking after midnight, and up to the period of noon when he presented himself to the Davenport Police Department. The black Camaro is also very distinctive in the sense that it has the face of a lion on both the driver's side of the vehicle and the passenger side of the vehicle, with king and queen noted in the area of where that lion's face is at. And then there's, that same type of design on the front hood of the Camaro. Those two vehicles remained parked and were available for use there at the address of 2744 East 53rd Street. Now, Mr. Dinkins also had a motorhome. This motorhome was located in an industrial area, actually in a fenced-in lot. And that lot belonged to a gentleman who owned Devon's, DEVON''S, self-storage. That mobile home, or RV if you will, just to give the court a perspective, I want the court to think about River Drive in the area where Credit Island is. And as you go along River Drive, heading west out of town, as you get past the Ball Diamond, you will get to an area that's very industrial. For purposes of perspective, if the court will picture where the Purina plant is located at on Rockingham. Schmidt Road is a north-south street. It lies on the west side of the Purina plant. And just to help a little bit more, if you're traveling on 2nd Street, heading west, it turns into Rockingham. You will pass the Purina plant, and then if you were to take that first north-south road, actually turn south going down to River Drive, that's Schmidt Road.
It would be a lot easier if they had a demonstrative, because I'm quite good at following directions. I have no idea where she is pointing at right now. Is she assuming the judge will know? But it is very fact-based, to the point, to the point, to the point. As I said in the beginning of her opening statement, I assume it will go this way. Not much feelings as it would have been for a jury. Dirk, she should have brought a raw egg. Yeah, or maybe a phone to flip around. And but it's very fact-based, so it should be easier to follow than it is, in my opinion. But let's continue.
Now, if you head out onto River Drive off of Schmidt Road, the distance from Schmidt Road to the entryway of Credit Island is about 400 meters. You know, if you run track, you run around a lap around the track, it's about 400 meters. So it's very, very close. So that is going to be another vehicle and the location that we're going to be discussing. We're going back to that point in time that I was talking about where Andrea Culberson looks out the window so that the court understands where the maroon Chevy Impala comes into play. Breasia Terrell is standing along the passenger side of that maroon Chevy Impala. This raises another topic of discussion that will be discussed throughout the trial. After the children took their baths, they were not given their pajamas to wear. They were given large white t-shirts that belonged to Mr. Dinkins. And I don't remember, I think the large was like maybe, or the size was maybe like a 4XL. So rather than that child going into bed into what would have been her pajamas, she had on a little pair of black shorts. We would later.
4 times XL on a kid is a nightgown. Just saying. 4 times XL. I don't use 4 times XL, and I'm a big guy. I'm 6'3", 6'4", 240, 250 pounds. I don't use 4 times XL. That's extremely large. And on kids 11 to 13, that is a nightgown. I know she is implying that they were almost not dressed, but that t-shirt will reach her feet, more or less, in my opinion.
Determined that she had on, you know, one of those little sports bras that little girls wear, you know, as they're developing, and this large white t-shirt. Andrea Culberson looks out. She knows there's no doubt it's Breasia because she had very distinctive braids and the child was standing there. She couldn't see the child's face because the child wasn't facing her. Going back to Mr. Dinkins, as he's digging around.
That is not a good festival. Distinctive braids. Yeah, but how many kids in that area have distinctive braids? And was she looking at a moving car? That kind of obstructs everything. But let's continue, because this will be really interesting to hear what the defense has to say.
Found in that closet, He collects something from the closet. She's not able to see what it is that he collects because it's secreted in his clothes. And then he leaves the apartment. Now, another important variable that will be discussed is this. Mr. Dinkins' cell phone was located by Andrea in the apartment at 3 o'clock. Because when she noticed that he was gone, she noticed that Breasia was gone, she went to call him. The phone wasn't being answered. And then she discovered his cell phone, and it was plugged in and being charged up.
Hi, Gigi. Everybody, say hello to my best mod, and thank you for showing up. You know, family first and such. And if you got a visitor, then you have a visitor. But hi, good to see you here. Good to see you here. Let's continue. Let's go back a few seconds.
Discovered his cell phone, and it was plugged in and being charged up. When he left at 3:30, he did not take that cell phone. That becomes very important because cell phones are devices that can be utilized to gather location information for where that
If you have your phone on you,
at,
you're
and whoever
guilty.
is in
If you
possession
don't
of
have
that
your phone
phone,
on you,
then that
you're
will
still
identify
guilty.
the location of that individual. So that cell phone was still back there at the apartment. Mr. Dinkins leaves.
Be careful, Valhalla.
Andrea
Somebody's
is very
looking for you.
Notorious at some point is waking up and he's crying. I should say he, I'm sorry. She brings the child into the living room to lay down. And then shortly after sunrise, with this being July, and sunrise is at about 5:30 in the morning, in terms of what law enforcement has been able to put together by way of a timeline, somewhere around 5:45 as an estimate, Mr. Dinkins returns to the apartment. He comes up. He's very, very frazzled. Ms. Culberson wants to know what's going on. He said, there's issues. I'll talk with you about it later. Where's Breasia? There's no Breasia. Mr. Dinkins then gathers up DL and goes to leave with a bag of the child's clothes. He goes to leave without his cell phone. Ms. Culberson tells him he needs to take his cell phone. At that point, he takes it, and then he leaves the apartment complex. Ms. Culberson then realizes that there's another bag of the children's clothing left behind, and she calls him to come back. He returns, and then she goes down to the maroon Chevy Impala. Breasia is not in the car. Notorious is in the car, Mr. Dinkins is in the car, but Breasia is not in the car. So then she goes back up to the apartment. I'm going to describe this as an area that became critical to the investigation, because anywhere that Mr. Dinkins was located, law enforcement, in terms of their investigation to try and locate this child, did major canvassing. That canvassing consisted of knocking on all of the doors there at the apartment complex, checking apartments there, if residents weren't home, to come back and check, to search garages there, to search the dumpsters, there we go, and just to search an entire area behind the apartment complex, because that's still a dedicated field area where there's a huge tree line and there's a creek, and the canvas went all along that area toward more like 74. It extended out to eastern, to the west, and then from 53rd, it extended to the south quite a ways to see if there was any indication anybody had seen that child anywhere had she wandered off. Discussions were had with Aisha and Danita about whether or not Breasia was the type of child who would wander off. Breasia is a child who has a hearing issue. She is a child who has a sight issue. She is a child that never wanders off. And Aisha will testify that little Breasia was a rule follower. And if somebody broke the rules, she was somebody who would tell on her brothers. The apartment complex was not a complex that she was familiar with. She'd never been there. She didn't have friends who lived there, and so she would have no need to wander off. Plus, the child was described as a very, very heavy sleeper, much like her mother and the two boys. Nothing's happened, all right? So now, we know that that's what the landscape looks in that area. By virtue of canvassing, law enforcement was also looking for any locations where there was video surveillance. Video surveillance was located at the Quick Start on 53rd. So that will lie between Jersey and Eastern. It's on the north side of the street. Between 5:50 and going up to the 6 o'clock hour, that maroon Chevy Impala.
All right. I forgot to say thank you to the person who yesterday gave, I believe, $15 on my PayPal. Much appreciated. Thank you so much. I also know that is your real name and not your online name or chat name. So I won't reveal it, but thank you so very much. It is much appreciated.
Travels west past the Quick Start. That maroon Chevy Impala is then identified from video surveillance at a residence on Judson Court, which actually the video surveillance camera was focused out on Eastern. So the rear of that residence faced Eastern. So the maroon Chevy Impala is traveling north on Eastern between 5:50 and 6 o'clock. Then that maroon Chevy Impala is seen traveling south on Jersey Ridge, and then the connection between those two streets would be Veterans Memorial Parkway. That's how you would access it. So it's seen traveling south. It correlates with what Ms. Culberson says of Henry Dinkins returning to pick up that second bag of clothes. And then that vehicle then is seen from a residence over there in the area of Jersey Ridge, traveling back north.
I was just checking one thing, and I want to share it with you. Chevrolet Impala, most popular car in Iowa, according to study. Now, this Chevy Impala that the defendant owns might be very distinct. But if it's the most popular car in Iowa, then all of a sudden, is that evidence in itself? It is damaging, yes. But is it real? I'm just speculating here. Is it really evidence in itself? Think about that for a bit. I didn't know this was the most popular car in Iowa before I found this. But here you are. Let's continue.
At this point, I'm going to focus on the narrative relative to tutorials, or DL. So DL will testify that he and his father went somewhere out of town and they drove for a while. And then his father went to a Walmart store. DL noticed that his father had taken the battery out of the cell phone. And so when his father went into the Walmart, the child put the battery back into the phone so he could play a video game. That becomes a very critical moment in time because when law enforcement became immersed in their investigation and was trying to ascertain the locations that Mr. Dinkins had traveled to, there was that ping in the area of Comanche, Clinton, and it was hitting on a cell phone tower that would be in the vicinity of the Walmart in Clinton. We're still telling the narrative relative to Notorious. When his father then comes out of Walmart, the child takes the battery out of the phone so he wouldn't get in trouble. They travel to different places. And then the child, once he was interviewed during the afternoon of June 10th, he was interviewed by Detective Hammis. Then the child left the Davenport Police Department with Detective Evan Obert, Detective Maureen Hammis, and Aisha Langford, his mother, who had been interviewed that afternoon. And then they started to travel to see if the child could identify locations. He had been with his father when they came back to Davenport. Now, to assist in that process, the following events occurred. Aisha Langford was not scheduled to work in the morning at Checkers. However, before 8 a.m., her boss called her and indicated that somebody wasn't able to come to work. Could she come on down and work the morning shift? And so she did. So she got down there around 8 o'clock. They had clocked in about 8:04. Aisha Langford had received some type of text, and the telephone records will tell us the sequence of events, from Henry Dinkins' cell phone. She will testify that she tried getting a hold of him. It wasn't happening, so she very simply sent a text, "Call me, I'm not going to, keep trying to make contact." At 8:08 a.m., there is now location information available for that phone. And that phone is hitting on cell phone towers down in the area of River Drive. So, if you go out Brady toward Clinton, you're traveling north on Highway 61. When you take the exits to go into Clinton, that's Highway 30. If you come back to Davenport, you're traveling south on 61. And then, of course, you have the ability to catch I-80 heading west. That will allow you to access Highway 280 that runs along the western border of Davenport, driving toward Rock Island. And then you can access River Drive from that area. During this time frame, there was construction there on River Drive. So then the cell phone, in terms of where it was hitting in the area of Concord and up to Rockingham. So Concord essentially would be, it winds a bit, but, technically we'll call it a north-south street. And then it would access Rockingham, which would be our east-west street. Henry Dinkins, cell phone powers up. He makes the telephone call to Aisha. He tells her he has just woken up and Breasia's gone from the apartment. Aisha becomes very upset. This makes no sense. She wants to know if he has reported this to the police department, and he said that he was heading there at that time. Aisha Langford believed he was heading to the police department, and then by virtue of that cell phone activity, that then formed the basis for canvassing that was done down in that area to search for Breasia and also to look for locations where there was video surveillance that would tell the story. So I'm going to take that, I'm going to set that aside, and I'll come back to that.
Jesus Christ, how long is she going to talk?
Aisha is hysterical. She's at work, she's crying. She will testify that her employer told her, go ahead and leave work. And then so she left Checkers to head down to the Davenport Police Department. When she pulled onto Locust Street, she headed west to go downtown. As she's heading west on Locust Street, she sees Henry Dinkins in that maroon Chevy Impala driving at an extremely high rate of speed, heading east. And she can see that Detorius is in the car. She does a U-turn. She's coming up from behind him as close as she can get. She's honking on that horn to get his attention, to get him to pull over. Henry Dinkins then turns left or heads north on Eastern. And she will testify that she was right up on that bumper. Henry Dinkins then pulls in to the McDonald's. And for purposes of perspective, think of the high V there on East Kimberly Road. And that sits at the back of the lot. McDonald's is there toward the front of Kimberly Road. They pull in there. She wants to know what the heck is going on. She tells Detorius, come on, you're not going to lose this child. You've already lost one of my children. And she grabs his things and wants to know what Henry is doing in this area because he's supposed to be reporting her child missing. Mr. Dinkins tells her that he doesn't know the address for the apartment where he lives, and so he has to travel out to Jersey Meadow Apartments to get that address so that then he has that to report to the police. She follows him to that apartment complex. So I'm going to change direction relative to the events. When Aisha Langford was at work, she called the Davenport Police Department. Well, actually, she called 911 first. She spoke with the dispatcher who directed her to the general number at the Davenport Police Department. So she calls that general number and she speaks with communication specialist Mona Borelli. She's telling Mona what's going on. She said Mr. Dinkins should be there right now. Mona Borelli indicates that he is not there. She said his car has got to be out there. It's got to be either, a maroon Chevy Impala or this black Camaro. Ms. Borelli indicates it's not out there. And that's what had prompted her to leave work and head down to the police department. That call comes in at 8:29. Communication specialist Borelli will testify that this isn't the typical call that they get where mom and dad can't find the child and the police go out, they're hiding in a closet or in the bed or somewhere. This one didn't feel right, and she was very concerned because she felt that there was going to be a very bad outcome. She spoke with Sergeant Mayhew, who was the station supervisor. Officer Burkle was dispatched out to the Jersey Meadow Apartments. Henry is there at the apartment complex. Aisha is there at the apartment complex. And the state will introduce segments of Officer Burkle's body-worn camera. His initial contact is with Aisha. And he's trying to collect just, biographical information, age, physical descriptors, date of birth, that type of thing. And she is reporting to him what has happened. Then in the background, you see Henry Dinkins wander up, and Officer Burkle says, hey, look, do you mind if I go into the apartment to check? Because oftentimes, the child is hiding somewhere where the parent, doesn't realize where they're at. I just had this situation last week with my own child, and we typically find the child. Mr. Dinkins wants to say he already searched the apartment and the child isn't there. Officer Burkle says, I'd still like to check. So then Mr. Dinkins indicates it's not his apartment, and that essentially Officer Burkle is going to have to get permission of Andrea Culberson. Aisha becomes very upset because she is not buying into what Henry Dinkins is saying, and she takes Notorious and she leaves.
Okay, this, according to the state's opening statement, this is very damning circumstantial. Now, circumstantial, if connected all the dots, is as good as any evidence. But so far in the opening statement, okay, I'm buying it. But we still have the defense opening statement. But I have no idea how long she will go on. But let's keep going.
She goes back to her house and she's looking for some type of card that had Breasia's picture on it that had been taken at school. So while she's doing that, Officer Burkle knocks on apartment number 8. Andrea Culberson comes down. He indicates that, he'd like to come in and check, that oftentimes children are hiding in places. Andrea Culberson looks out. She sees Henry Dinkins standing a little bit down the sidewalk. She says, is it okay with him? And then Henry Dinkins leaves. Andrea Culberson allows Officer Burkle to go in there and look for Breasia. She's not there. Officer Culberson, Officer Burkle starts to check the area, and there's nothing that's indicating Breasia's anywhere in the area. He calls his supervisor, Sergeant Willie. We have other patrol officers who come out. They start checking the area. This situation is not feeling right, and so then the Detective Bureau is contacted, and then we have massive resources that are coming out. And there is a huge canvas that's conducted along that area with nothing showing up for Breasia. Now, let's go back down to River Drive. With the cell phone hitting off the tower when that conversation occurred between Aisha and Henry at 8:08, there was video surveillance showing his maroon Chevy Impala traveling past the Hy-Vee. There was video surveillance from Purina. There was what I'm going to call captured feed. Devon's self-storage is a motion-activated video system. There was the vehicle captured by virtue of movement being triggered, and then in that same area there is Jack's brake and alignment. There was video feed that showed Mr. Dinkins' vehicle traveling on Schmidt Road toward the area of River Drive. And then, based on information provided by Notorious, when Detective Hammes, Detective Obert, and Aisha left the station, Notorious had been talking about going to the RV with his father, where his dad had this knife that he'd gone down to the river, and he walked down into the river and he'd been wiping off of the cloth. And they went back to the RV. There was an image of Mr. Dinkins with Notorious standing there at the door of the RV. And so there was video feed that captured all of that movement that the child had identified. All right. So now Credit Island is going to be the subject of investigation, as will be the RV. So I'm just going to stop right there, and now I'm going to jump over to the Clinton area and discuss that. By virtue of the child DL putting the battery into the phone and with that ping, there was a canvass done along Highway 30. And actually there was a canvass done along Highway 61. The maroon Chevy Impala is captured on DOT video surveillance cameras at mile marker 124 heading north toward Clinton around 6:11 in the morning. Then on Highway 30, as you travel east into Clinton, that vehicle is captured on video feed at what would be Posh Farms, PAASCH. That vehicle then is captured at First State Central Bank, which is adjacent to the Walmart on the west side of the business. And then video surveillance from Walmart captures Mr. Dinkins pulling going into the parking lot. He goes up to the store, it's not 7 o'clock a.m., it's locked. He comes back to the vehicle, but then he goes back, he enters at, say, 7 a.m. And then video surveillance footage inside the store shows him buying 2 bottles of Clorox, not the gallon-sized bottles, but more of the narrow bottles. The court's going to be hearing testimony from various forensic analysts and individuals from the DCI laboratory, our criminals. And one of the things that the court will hear about is that Clorox is a product that will destroy DNA.
It also
Those
cleans.
2 bottles of Clorox are being purchased,
Now,
and then by virtue
Now, in this context, yes, I understand why they want to bring it up. But in itself, I don't see it as evidence.
of that canvas, we have a time frame from First State Central Bank when Mr. Dinkins is leaving, a time frame for when he passes Posh Farms, and then actually in the area of Highway 61 and 30, there's a DeWitt Travel Center, there's a time frame captured there. Law enforcement will testify that they did a time calculation traveling from mile marker 124 to the Walmart, going the speed limit. They're going to tell you what that time frame would be. The trip out was longer than that, but the trip back had even 5 more minutes that was added to that. Let's take that, let's set that aside. Now we're going to talk about the discovery of Breasia's remains. 6 months later, on March 22nd of 2021, 3 gentlemen, friends, decided to go fishing on the evening of March 22nd. There's a pond located just further north of the Highway 30 exit into Clinton. So if you travel 5 miles further north, you exit onto what would be 212th Street. This is a rural area. Kunow Implement is a farm implement business that sits right there on 212th Street. And 212th then turns into 210. So the business actually faces, the front of the business faces north, basically on 212, 210. It's on a pie-shaped piece of property. So on the west side of that property, which would run along Highway 61, and what we would think of as the old Highway 61, is 218. On the east side of the property, and that would be that north-south road, that's 270th Avenue. So you've got 212th, 218th, and 217th, and basically it feeds down where 218th and 270th meet. To the south of Kunow Implement, there is a heavily wooded area. And within the backside of that property, there is a pond. You can access that pond from 270th. There is basically just a dirt road that's got a very steep incline because Kunow Implement sets up much higher. The pond.
Yeah, now I agree. This is very monotone. It is point by point by point, not much excitement, but this is a bench trial. She has no need to address a jury to keep them up and perky. So this might be the tactic she uses in bench trials. Yeah, but yeah, it's not that very exciting, but it's very methodical. She goes point by point with the timeline.
It is further down. That roadway, you will hold testimony, is very steep, and for a car to pull down in there would be very difficult, probably get stuck. When the three gentlemen
I
went to
have
go
my
fishing,
asshole
they
cat
were
here
walking
next to me,
down
and once
that
in a
steep
while he
incline,
puts
having
out a
parked their pickup
cross
trucks up on the
this
road.
on my leg.
And because we're talking about March 22nd, there's no vegetation. One of the gentlemen looks over to what would be his right as he's walking down, looks to the north essentially, and he sees a human skull. He points it out to his two friends. They go over and check, and sure enough, it is a human skull, and there are skeletal remains. One of the things that the gentleman noticed is that there is black hair consistent with a black individual. Because Breasia Terrell and her having been missing was so highly publicized,
Consistent with a black individual. Yeah, take note of that.
the gentleman will testify that at some point they made the connection. Is this Breasia Terrell's remains? The Clinton County Sheriff's Department was contacted. They come out, the scene is cordoned off, and then essentially the notifications go to the Davenport Police Department. Throughout the entirety of this investigation, you had Davenport Police involved, you had the FBI involved, you had the Iowa DCI involved, we had multiple agencies from like Clinton Police Department, Clinton County Sheriff's Department, and just citizens in the community who would come out and donate time, just helping to do canvases in areas. And then so that area then was processed the next morning with a Dr. Heather Garvin. She's an anthropologist associated with the State Medical Examiner's Office. And because we were dealing with skeletal remains, she was brought in. There was the local medical examiner. Those remains were recovered, sent to the State Medical Examiner's Office. One of the things that the court will hear testimony about is that one of the little legs still had mummified tissue on it. And so then there was the process of trying to develop DNA through that mummified tissue. However, they ended up using bone marrow. They could identify that body as being a female child of Aisha Langford because there was no DNA for Breasia, but because a child takes half of their mother's DNA, half of their father's DNA, they could say this was a female child of Breasia. And then Breasia, because of her dental visits, they were then able to get her dental records, and then with the collection of teeth, put that all together, and there was that definitive identification that was made of Breasia. So the court's going to be hearing about that and everything associated with that recovery.
Dental records in itself, not evidence, but in combination, I could see it. Yeah, in combination, I could see it being used as identification, even if the victim has been outside for a very long time.
And then on April 3rd, during the recovery of the body, this is what was discovered. And during the examination of Breasia's body by the anthropologist in the State Medical Examiner's Office.
Let's see here. From Nanya Witness, is the defendant related to her or linked in any way? The defendant has a child with the mother of the victim, but he is not the father of the victim.
She had been shot through the jaw. The bullet had traveled to the area of her C3 and C4. She had been shot in her back scapula. 2 projectiles were recovered in the dirt with the remains. And then within her hair, there was a projectile that was found within her hair. And then the clothing that was recovered at the scene was little black shorts, her little sports bra, and the large white t-shirt. And in addition, Aisha Langford will tell you
Yeah,
that
it's stacking up if they can show it in
she was
evidence.
asked by law enforcement to try and give them any information about clothing the child had been wearing. So she had to go back and try and
I'm going to
reconstruct
do this
a
in
report she had given, and she thought
1.25
that there was a
because this might
possibility
take a
that
while
flip-flop,
otherwise.
But then there was a little white
Nonya,
slide
she
that
was
had
10
torn
years
marks
old.
on it, and that was found there, which was identified as belonging to Breasia Terrell. Then on April 3rd, the Big River Rescue and Recovery Team came out to the scene, and then the dive team went into the pond looking for a gun, and there was actually a revolver that was found. So with the revolver, obviously there's not going to be any casings because there was an attempt to try and find casings in the area. There wasn't any. With the finding of the revolver, the projectiles obviously leaving the gun, the empty casings were there. There was still some light ammunition there. There was attempts to try and identify who had purchased that gun. Unfortunately, the records associated with that were in Cedar Rapids, and when there was that big flood, in the area of the courthouse and all of that, all of the records were destroyed. Those projectiles were then sent to the DCI laboratory to do comparisons with the gun itself. One of the projectiles was pretty mangled up, and because these had been out in the elements for quite a while, the criminalist who evaluated that looked at the characteristics of the revolver and what characteristics would be transferred to a bullet by virtue of the manufacturing process and how the barrel itself will have unique markings. He could say that what characteristics that were there were similar to this gun, and then the criminals put together a list of every type of gun that would produce those types of similar characteristics. The gun recovered was on that list. There was DNA processing done of her little clothing. One of the issues that law enforcement was dealing with the little body and clothing being out there subject to the elements, the sun, the wind, the rain, the snow, obviously over time, that will destroy DNA. And so that process was attempted as well. And then from the FBI, here's what you're going to hear from the FBI. There were search warrants, a massive amount of search warrants issued. And in instances like with the Chevy Impala or different vehicles, multiple search warrants issued. The vehicles were photographed and they were searched. Of note, in the Chevy Impala, there was an axe, there was a baseball bat, but then there was an empty sleeve for like a knife or a machete, but no machete there.
The issue is here that she is not using the microphone.
There was a bunch of tree branches and stuff on top of the skeletal remains. Some of those branches, there were natural breaks, with the wind, and there would be the splintering of the branch if it comes off of a tree. Other branches had
148.25. I'm going to refresh and see if that might.
When they were recovering the remains of Breasia Terrell, there was a bunch of tree branches and stuff on top of the skeletal remains. Some of those branches, there were natural breaks, with the wind, and there would be the splintering of the branch if it comes off of a tree. Other branches had a clean slice through it. So that was of interest to law enforcement. Detorius had described when he and his father went down to Credit Island, his father had walked off into an area toward like what would be the pond, and his father had a knife that he was wiping off. Law enforcement went down to that area and there were foot impressions in the dirt where you could see what would have been the pattern on the sole of the shoes worn. That was photographed and that was collected, and then as those footprints moved forward to the body of water, that basically it became just, depressions in the ground where it was more muddy. And so those photographs and those casts were taken because one of the things that Aisha Langford talked about is when she had contact with Henry Dinkins at the apartment, she noticed that he was wearing a pair of gold shoes that had mud on them. He had a do-rag on and it was just kind of askew. And he had on a white t-shirt and it was a little dirty, not something that was markedly dirty, but she noticed that it was dirty. Henry Dinkins came down to the Davenport Police Department at noon and was interviewed by Detective Owen. When he came down, he had on a white t-shirt and the shorts that he was wearing at the apartment complex. But those gold shoes, he was not wearing those. He had on a different pair of tennis shoes. And then the other thing that the state will throw into the equation that the court will hear about, during Henry Dinkins' interview, he was asked about why he was leaving the apartment in the middle of the night in his travels. He had talked about going to the Quick Shop over on 53rd, that would be near the old Menards, where the old Menards was at, to buy cigarettes. That video surveillance feed was collected. He was wearing those gold shoes, but that he had on something distinctly different. What I'm going to call the wife beater's white t-shirt versus one that has sleeves, and then a different pair of shorts, that had different pattern. Search warrants were obtained for 2744 East 53rd, and the defendant's sister's house, Nina McQuay, and then another individual by the name of Jensen Johnson. And that was based on communications that Henry Dinkins had with those individuals that morning of July 10th, looking for the tennis shoes, looking for what the clothes that he'd been wearing in the Quick Shop. And those were never, ever recovered or found. And so therefore, there could be no comparison between the images that were collected and the dental casts that were taken out on Credit Island. There was a gentleman by the name of Jim Peters then who came in from the Ames area to assist. He works with canines, and these canines are trained to detect on the odor of a deceased body. VOC, and he'll define that, volatile organic compounds. And basically, it deals with molecules. He went down to Credit Island and ran.
Yeah, I can hear there's someone in the courtroom sighing, just, and that goes through the prosecution's voice, because the prosecution is allergic to microphones, I would assume. So yeah, I'm actually quite sure the bad sound from her is because she doesn't use the courtroom microphone. But as I said earlier, there's an app called Enhancer for YouTube. You can it's on both Firefox and Chrome. I don't know if you can add it to the app. I'm not sure. I'm not technologically advanced, but I am actually using Enhancer now on this stream. It looks like this, and the difference is
His two canines
and
in
this.
that area. The two canines went to an area and alerted where Henry Dinkins was described by his son D.L. as having gone. They'll talk about how a body doesn't necessarily have to be there, but say, for example, if there's tissue or blood or something like that, those are molecules that go out and they float in the air.
That only
Then
means
he
that
was taken to the
at
area
some
of
point
Devon
there
self-storage
was
where the RV had originally been
tissue
parked, but
or
it now
blood
had been
or anything
seized,
spilled
as had
in that
the
area,
pallet and the
not from whom.
barrel. And those were
But
in storage
it's damning
facilities,
for him.
that law enforcement had. The dogs actually alerted to a little camper that was parked in the area of the RV. And there had been a southwest wind, so with molecules, they were alerted to some moist dirt underneath that camper. And he will describe how molecules will attach to anything that's moist. Then they went out to the area where the Camaro was at. The dogs did not alert there. They went to the area of the RV. The dogs alerted on the RV toward the front. And then they went to the area where the Impala was at, and the dogs alerted on the Impala. And then they went out to the area along Veterans Memorial Drive in the area of Eastern. And he'll describe how a vehicle, with the seams, odors will seep out of that and they can float. And the dogs alerted to the scent of Henry Dinkins, because when he went out there, he had been given, or law enforcement had collected a clothing item of Henry Dinkins, and there had been swabs taken to collect his scent, his odor, that had been shown to the dogs, and the dogs actually went out and alerted in an area that the vehicle was known to travel past. So the court will be hearing about that as well. The other matter that I would share in my opening. In addition to the canvas up at 2744 East 53rd, the major canvas that was done out on East River Drive, you'll hear about some other canvases that have happened when the public would call in and they would think that they would have information. It didn't prove to be fruitful. When it had been determined that Henry Dinkins had been traveling along Highway 30, there was a major canvas that was done in that area. And soil samples were collected from that area. Soil samples were also collected from Credit Island, and here's why. With the Impala, when it was being searched and examined, and actually the gas tank was removed because they wanted to determine how much gas was in the gas tank. Henry Dinkins had fueled up at that quick shop, so they wanted to see how much gas was left. There were chunks of mud and grass up underneath the car. And then when Breasia's little remains were found over there in the area of Canal Implement, there were soil samples collected along that area. All of that was
If
sent
it
off
says
to the
consistent
FBI.
with,
3 soil samples in the area of 270th Avenue were found inclusive of 3 of the 4 soil samples that were taken out from underneath Henry Dinkins' car. And then the final topic of conversation is a gentleman by the name of Jared Brink. With the discovery of her remains, the news story started to go out. Jared Brink had gone over that evening to his friend Joseph Adams' house. Joseph Adams indicated that they had found remains over there in the area of Canal Implement. And Jared had mentioned to his friend, do you remember how I told you last year sometime that there had been a black gentleman that had run out onto Highway 61 when I was going to work and had needed me to pull him out because he had gotten stuck? For purposes of perspective, Jared Brink lives in a rural area just further north of 212th Street. He works at Linwood Mining in Buffalo. So he travels into Davenport and travels that area of the highway at 4:30 a.m. in the morning. That's when he had an encounter with a black gentleman. He was directed over to the area of 270th. There was a maroon Chevy Impala that the right side of the vehicle, the wheels were stuck off onto the shoulder, and that gentleman couldn't get the vehicle out. He was up there at the car. There was no one in the car. He pulled the vehicle out. The gentleman wanted to pay him money. He was very, very thankful he wouldn't take the money. But then, of course, when Mr. Adams tells him about this, Mr. Adams' wife has a picture of the maroon Chevy Impala due to press releases that the Davenport Police Department had been putting out. She showed him a copy of that photograph. Jared Brink says that that's the vehicle I pulled out. He then contacted law enforcement. He had contact with the Deputy Cundiff with the Clinton County Sheriff's Department, detective, I should say Lieutenant. Lieutenant Cundiff reached out to the Davenport Police Department, and then Mr. Brink was interviewed. Mr. Brink could provide physical descriptors that were consistent with Henry Dinkins. He was not able to, he said he would not be able to pick him out of a photo lineup. He wasn't sure of the time frame, but then he provided his cell phone. And that cell phone then was processed for location information. And that cell phone placed Mr. Brink in that area on July 10th at the time frame of 4:30. So that essentially is what the court is going to be hearing. What the state's going to do, Your Honor, we're going to try and, in an ideal world, I would put on a linear chronology of what happened, but we're dealing with a lot of people that we have to fly in and out. And so
Hemplant, Texas. Why is this a bench trial and not a jury trial? This is the defendant's choice if he wants a jury trial or a bench trial. I'm not exactly sure how that is decided, but I do know that they always have the right to a jury trial, but they don't have to have a jury trial, and then it will become a bench trial. And now, let's see here. Maybe somebody can answer it correctly.
I don't know about that. How's it going? Well, it's the defendant's choice. The defendant can choose if he wants a bench trial or a jury trial. So,
Okay.
yeah. So, you know. if let's say there's a saying that if you're innocent, you want a bench trial. If you're guilty, you want a jury trial.
Mm.
So maybe he thinks he's innocent. I don't know. Or
Mm.
there's enough question here, but
Yeah,
it's his choice. So
it's his choice. Yeah. So I don't know how much you have been listening to.
just the last few minutes. It took a long time to get the kids to bed tonight, and now
Oh,
my
yeah.
jerk cat is not.
Mm.
He's just all over me. But
Oh, I have one of those too.
Yep. He
He's-
only wants to be around me when I'm on stream.
Yeah,
And now he's
my
purring in my ear.
wants to be around me when he's hungry, and
He's
which
been
he
fed.
he's no, this one is always hungry, and he's there, sitting there, and just once in a while, a claw just goes out and look, bing, no, thank you,
Oh, this
just.
one will
tantalizing my
get you. You
legs.
walk down the hall, and he'll come after you and grab you. Doesn't usually use his claws, but it's enough to make you jump.
Yeah. Now this one, oh, introduce my guest.
Bastard.
Yes, hi. This is
You little
Angelo.
bastard. Shit. You might have drawn blood on that one. Oh, damn. The hell was that
Cats.
about?
He heard my voice and now he hates me too.
Yeah. Jesus.
Now, introduce yourself to
I'm MG
my
Law.
audience.
I'm not sure if I've been on your stream before. I've been on with Expert and Legal Vices, Steve Gosney, a couple of times. I'm an attorney in Oklahoma. I actually have court in the morning, so I won't be on too late tonight. But I do mostly bankruptcy, civil work, so I don't do any criminal stuff. But these trials always intrigue me, so I kind of like watching them.
Yeah. Okay. Well, so far, since this is a bench trial, the opening statements is quite dull, very methodical, very on point. No emotions, no appeal to the jury. So I appreciate that, but maybe not the best for a stream, maybe.
Well,
But-
and good trials usually are boring. I mean,
Yeah.
most of these are should be boring.
Mm.
And it may be another reason why he chose a bench trial. He didn't want, it's a small girl,
Mm.
Victim, and you don't want the emotions played to the jury, which the state would really ham it up. So,
Well, so far, just to make a quick summary, the defendant has a child with the mother of the victim, but he is not the father of the victim.
okay,
The night of the disappearance, he took his son and the victim to. They were agreed. Yes, let's bring them over to my apartment so we can go have fun. And they played video games and drove around and visited stuff. According to the prosecution, in the middle of the night, she woke up, and both he and the victim was gone. According to her.
okay,
And that. The day after, the girl was so missing for real. And according to the prosecution, she has witnesses that places the defendant and the victim in his car,
okay,
in a Chevy Impala. But I checked it out, and Chevy Impala is the most common car in Iowa. Most popular car in Iowa. So, but they claim it's very distinct in some way,
okay,
and the girl's braids are very unusual. So the
Okay.
witnesses who claim to have seen her didn't see the face of her, but according to them, those braids were distinct enough for them to identify the car, her, and him, according to the state. Now, they didn't find her until the next spring, and then she was in that very, very a body outdoor and a child for 7 or 8 months.
Can imagine.
So they can only identify her through mother's part of the DNA and dental records, and also the clothes found at the body
Yeah.
matched the clothes that the girl was wearing. But she has been very methodical in describing what routes the defendant's car have been seen through different cameras and stuff. And also there was some soil sample they found on his car that matched.
Yeah.
I have no idea
Yeah.
how they will do that, because soil for me is soil. I
Yeah.
mean, to the area where the
Yeah.
body was found. So far, she's been very, very methodical, and I haven't heard anything from the defense yet. But
Yeah.
if she can prove it via evidence when the trial starts, he might be screwed. But I haven't heard anything from the defense
Yeah.
yet. So there is where we are. Where in Iowa? Oh, I
don't know.
seriously don't know.
We'll have to
Yeah.
pull up some Google here.
Barely know his name.
Let's see. Davenport, maybe? At least that's where the trial is, maybe. I don't know. Yeah. Davenport, Iowa.
Okay. I don't know how big of an area that is.
I don't know. I think it's maybe one of the larger cities in Iowa, but it's not really saying much.
Davenport, Iowa has a population of 100,000. So not that big. But I don't know exactly. Davenport, Iowa.
It's right off the
Is it-
Mississippi. Let's see. It's the third largest city in Iowa.
Okay.
And
So
where is
being the most popular car in Iowa might not mean that much. Yeah.
Yeah, it looks like it's in eastern Iowa, right on the Mississippi River.
Okay. Okay, Quad City area. Yeah. So there is where she was found decomposed,
Oh,
sadly. But there's where we are. We will see what the I'm playing this is in 1.25, so because she has extremely good pronunciation.
that's good.
So yeah. So go back a few seconds. But she barely knows how to use a microphone, and
That's typical.
yeah.
See, and I'm not used to that because in bankruptcy court, you have to stand at the lectern and speak
Yeah.
into the microphone because it's all electronic court reporting. And if you don't speak into the microphone, the judge will stop and say, "Speak into the microphone. We can't hear you." And then usually in the state court, most of the time there's not a microphone. It's small enough. Most of what I do in state court, we can usually just approach the bench and argue there. We don't have to stand and be at the lectern. But
yeah, and apparently the judge can hear her clearly, so he does not say anything.
yeah, I guess the court reporter can hear her because if
Yeah.
couldn't, then they'd let her know.
Yeah. All right, let's continue.
In an ideal world, I would put on a linear chronology of what happened, but we're dealing with a lot of people that we have to fly in and out. And so things are going to get jumbled around. But just for purposes of perspective, this afternoon, we will have Borelli, who will be testifying. That was our communication specialist. Our civilian crime scene technician, Jill Foster, she's going to come in. She did the processing out there on Credit Island. And then we have another civilian crime scene, Alicia Fritz, who will be coming in. She's going to be talking about photographs that she took of the brush when Breasia's remains were recovered, but she's getting ready to have a baby and she'll be induced on Monday. And then we're going to have Officer Chris Mayer get on the stand. He actually was out in the area of Breasia's remains, and he helped to take measurements of where we would find the skull and where we would locate various skeletal remains and clothing. So it's going to be all over the place there, Your Honor. We'll do our best But there will be points in time where we have to put people on, and it's not a nice linear chronology. And that's all from the state.
Oh,
Thank you, Ms. Cunningham.
all right. You caught the last couple of minutes of it. And
Sorry.
yeah, but now let's hear from, oh, I have to do this. And so I can find everything to make all the chapters
Yeah.
fit, because it's not fun when you don't have those.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's just keep going. Let's see if he speaks.
Mr. Freeze, is the defense going to present an opening statement?
You see, with a microphone.
Yeah. Yeah, you can hear just fine.
Open statement to close the government's evidence.
All right, thank you very much. That'll conclude the proceedings this morning.
Oh,
We'll read-
no opening
Ms. Cunningham.
statement.
Your Honor, one of the things that I had asked, because of
That was new.
I mean, it happened. I mean, there's not much. Sometimes there's not much to say. He's not having to play to a jury, so I mean, you're not going to be able to really persuade that, play emotions with the judge typically. So
Yeah. Okay, that was really interesting. But let's go back and see what the prosecution wanted to say.
All right, thank you very much. That'll conclude the proceedings this morning. We'll read Ms. Cunningham.
Your Honor, one of the things that I had asked, because of we've got time concerns that we have to get witnesses on this afternoon. They're flying in and they're flying out. What I would like to do is, if we could take advantage of the next hour, put Sergeant Piper on the stand to testify, because then we can get Matt's introduced of the area so that we have that perspective as we move through individuals' testimony.
I am fine. I'm good with that, but we will take a 15-minute recess at this time.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you.
okay.
Okay.
Yeah, she mentioned something. There's one of the witnesses was going to be induced for labor in like a couple of days. So I think they were trying to get 2 or 3 witnesses out pretty quick.
Yeah, that would be smart to just say, she's going to have a baby. Let's have her on as quickly
Yeah, I think
as possible.
they were trying to get one of the officers on first because he was the one that was there to give a layout of the scene, and then they can do, the others after that. But so I guess his won't take very long. She just said the next hour. So
yeah, let's move forward, and maybe we can do the first witness as well.
Jeffrey Piper.
Okay, here we go.
Ms. Cunningham, you may call your first witness.
Your Honor, the state calls Sergeant Jeffrey Piper to the stand.
Hi, Indigo.
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
You can see both
Please have a seat
mine
there
and
MD's position the
cat
microphone.
about 10 minutes ago, maybe.
yeah, till he laid into my hand.
You may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Please state your name for the record and spell both your first and your last name.
Jesus
Jeffrey,
Christ.
Geoffrey, Pfeiffer, Peifffer.
What is your occupation?
I'm a police officer with the city of Davenport in Scott County, Iowa.
How long have you been employed with the Davenport Police Department?
Jesus Christ.
22 and a half years.
If you could describe the
Yeah, so it's not the sound from the court that is bad.
No,
It is
that hurt my ears.
the prosecution.
I turned my headphones up.
Yeah, I have everything up, and it was all right. But now she's too loud, and I can't turn it down because then we can't hear the witness. Oh. Jesus Christ. Oh. All right, but now we're ready for it. Oh.
different capacities that you served the department over your career?
Over the last couple of decades, I have worked in the patrol field, responding to calls for service and things of that nature that anyone would do in the beginning of their career. I transitioned into a couple different versions of community policing operations. I have risen through the ranks up to sergeant, and I've served in different capacities throughout the agency as a supervisor. In 2017, I was transferred to the Criminal Investigations Division as a supervisor of detectives.
Okay. What division within the Detective Bureau were you assigned to supervise?
In 2017 to 2022, I was the supervisor of the Special Victims Unit.
Okay. Were you working in that capacity in July of 2020?
Yes, I was.
Now, Sergeant Pfeiffer, I mean, obviously you know why we are here, to talk about Breasia Terrell and the report that had come up about her missing. What date was the child initially reported as missing?
July 10th of 2020.
Were you significantly involved in that investigation?
Yes, I was.
Okay. Before we talk about the investigation itself, let's just talk about what would be a typical experience for officers of the Davenport Police Department. Is it unusual for the police department to get calls from parents or caretakers that they can't find a child?
No, it is not.
Okay. And just give us a perspective of what that looks like for law enforcement who responds to those types of calls.
A majority of the calls that we receive for missing persons, they have a variety of details and different situations. They could be ranging anywhere from a small child who may fall asleep in a closet or make a tent or a fort or something like that within the residence and fall asleep. Children have some, natural inquisitive senses of adventure. Sometimes children wander off into tree houses in their own yard or adjacent yards, play with friends, wander off, and don't check in with their caregivers. Up to teenagers. Sometimes teenagers wander off, or they hang out with friends, maybe where they're not invited to or welcomed by other parental figures. And we sometimes are able to find them fairly quickly when you find out who the friend circle is. But again, that's with slightly older people that have the benefit of language and communication. And then the last normal part of missing persons encompass some of the elderly or individuals with dementia and things of that nature.
And when those types of calls come in, as a general rule, does the Davenport Police Department, are they successful in being able to find the children or the teenagers or maybe even an elderly person that, has some type of mental infirmities?
Yes, we are.
All right. Now, with respect to Breasia Terrell, when she was reported missing on July 10th of 2020, was there something distinctly different about this particular report as the day developed?
Yes, there was.
And explain.
I was contacted in the mid-morning hours of July 10th in 2020 by Sergeant Willie, who was the patrol street supervisor. He had been requested to respond to that location where Breasia Terrell was being reported as missing. When he contacted me, he informed me that this didn't seem like a typical missing kid that wandered off or anything that we would, be able to resolve anytime soon without additional resources. And he was seeking assistance from investigative assets to help with that call.
Okay. Who was the initial officer that was responded to a complaint of Breasia missing?
That was Patrol Officer Burkle.
All right. And what location had Officer Burkle responded to?
He responded to 2744 East 53rd Street, apartment 8.
Okay. Who resided there at 2744 East 53rd Street, apartment 8?
Andrea Culberson.
And then was Andrea Culberson involved in a relationship with anyone at that time?
She was the significant other to Henry Dinkins.
Is Henry Dinkins present in court today?
He is.
Could you please point him out and describe what he's wearing?
Gentleman, black button-up shirts in between his two lawyers.
Your Honor, may the record reflect that the witness has identified Mr. Dinkins.
It's
The
not
record
hard to
shall so
identify the
reflect.
defendant.
All right. With Officer
Sorry, what do you
I
say?
said it's not hard to identify the defendant when you're in court.
No, I'm always amazed by that. I
I
mean,
know.
has it ever happened that they mistake it? Unless it's a matlock
I
moment.
guess a normal witness, some not a police officer, but maybe some random witness might get someone confused.
Mm.
You know, but
Yeah.
I mean, somebody like
Yeah.
that, this officer is going to know that the defendant's sitting over at that table. So
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh, yeah. So, some procedures seems not entirely necessary unless you. The most fun thing I've ever seen or heard of was back in the 90s or something. Something called America's Dumbest Criminals,
yeah.
and the witness was asked, Miss whatever, do you see the two people who broke into your house here today? And the defendant, yeah, we are here.
Oh wow. You
Mm,
almost want to just, as the state, just say, okay, state rests.
yeah.
Oh, now you want back in my lap again. Jeez, seriously.
Yes, a little girl was killed in 2020 and was found spring of 2021. Or the remains was found.
Hey, Chandler.
Hey, Chandler, what's so funny? Well, they just asked this officer if he recognized the defendant, and we were just having fun. But yeah, it would be remarkable if he didn't. Oh, with Chandler here, I'm guessing that Dave's stream of the That We Heard documentary on Netflix
Oh, okay.
is done. And here's Half Irish and a bunch of other people. Okay. We have been watching the state's opening statement. The defense chose to not have an opening statement. This is a bench trial. And in my opinion, the state did a good opening statement. Very, very, very methodical and dull. MLS Discord raid.
Well, that could be interesting if it's a Discord raid.
Yeah.
And I mean, Ferrell's here, so we got to watch out.
Oh, okay. Hi, Farrell. Yeah, and this is the first witness, Officer Jeffrey Pfeiffer. It wasn't really spelled as he pronounced it, but
It's
who
like
am I?
Pfeiffer
Who am
or
I?
something like that.
Yeah, who am I to judge? New member. Hey, thank you, Donna. I think you renewed your membership, so you're returning, but much appreciated. And a bit of grifting. If you think that my content is good enough, please do. If you have $3 to spare a month, then become a member, and you get members-only content and access to my Discord. And Dave is having issues with his setup and monitors, working on it for tomorrow morning stream. Okay. But MG has not much time, so let's continue. So far, this guy has only said his credentials and that he knows who the defendant is, or he recognizes him. So let's go on.
Burkle, being the first patrol officer out there,
Oh,
now it's going to buffer.
was he the individual that had reached out to his supervisory staff?
Yes,
All right. And then the next connect was between Sergeant Willie and yourself.
yes.
All right. With you receiving that request by Sergeant Willie, describe then what resources were pulled together and the approach that was taken by the department.
I initially gathered up a few of the detectives that were in the office with me at that particular moment and had them respond to the apartment location with me to begin an initial assessment of any other needs and assets that we would need up there. On that arrival, I was briefed by Officer Burkle and Sergeant Willie as to some of the additional details, which at that time I learned this young girl had originally gone missing from this apartment in the overnight hours. At this point in time, we've had several hours go by, and there had been little to no canvassing done in that particular apartment complex, and there's well over 100 plus units on that particular property, and it was time to organize some canvassing and some door knocking activities. This apartment complex had units that were not occupied and garages and things of that nature that were unsecured. So we devised an organized plan to at least start combing that property and start seeking out some canvassing for the surrounding areas with video and things of that nature.
What is the name of the apartment complex?
Jersey Meadows.
Where is the Jersey Meadow apartment complex located here in town? And if you could, associate it with businesses or properties that we would be familiar with.
Sure. That particular area is on 53rd Street, which is in the far northeast section of the city of Davenport. And if you are familiar with the area there, we have a large Costco store, and it is immediately on the west side of the fence line to Costco's. It's across the street from Portillo's hot dog place. And most notably, Elmore Avenue is a main thoroughfare for commercial shopping and things of that nature. And it's just a few blocks to the west of that intersection.
What directions does 53rd run?
53rd runs east and west through the city of Davenport.
How many dedicated lanes of traffic are there for east and west traffic on 53rd Street?
Under normal conditions, there's 2 east and 2 west and a turn lane.
All right. And then let's talk about the streets surrounding 53rd Street that would be main thoroughfares running north and south.
Thank you, Donati, for gifting 1 membership. And the receiver was Julio. Yay! Everybody say thank you to Donna.
So, Jersey Meadows apartment, which side of the street?
Jesus Christ. I'm going to do it like this. 22809 and refresh. Hopefully it...
Under normal conditions, there's 2 east and 2 west and a turn lane.
All right. And then let's talk about the streets surrounding 53rd Street that would be main.
Oh, dear Lord. Which browser is it?
Chrome.
Thoroughfares running north and south. So, Jersey Meadows apartment, which side of the street is it located on?
It's on the north side.
Right. And then if we were to travel west on 53rd, what would be the major thoroughfare that you would run into that would run north and south?
Your next north-south street would be Jersey Ridge Road.
Okay. And then from there, if you were to continue traveling west through the intersection of 53rd and Jersey Ridge, what would be your next major street?
It would be Eastern Avenue.
Okay. Now
I don't understand why they are not having a demonstrative here.
Yeah, I don't.
Because they must trust that the judge was a cab driver in his previous career or something.
Yeah, there may not be a big. It's not a huge city. I mean, if you were, if I was on, a jury or the bench, here in where I am, I would, and you spelled out a particular intersection, I probably would know where it was. If depending on how maybe the city's on a grid layout, so it's a lot easier to figure things out.
Yeah,
Let's talk,
continue.
okay, and then from Eastern Avenue, if you were to continue traveling west, what would then be the next major thoroughfare?
The next major thoroughfare north and south west of Eastern Avenue would take you to Brady Street, Welcome Way, which are north-south street names for Highway 61 as it travels through the city of Davenport.
Okay, now let's talk about what major north-south streets there are if you move from the apartment complex going east. So if you come out of that apartment complex and you're driving east, you pass Costco, what's going to be your next major north-south street?
Elmore Avenue would be the next main street.
Okay, where the apartment complex is located, how would you characterize the neighborhood as a whole?
It's very commercialized in that particular area. That apartment complex was one of the original footprints in that area as it was being developed. Further to the north of that apartment complex, there has begun some residential projects up there for normal residential housing.
Okay, and when you talk about the original footprint, that whole area of Davenport, what was it before they built the apartment complex?
It was farm fields.
Okay, is there still farm fields located behind the apartment complex?
Yes, there is.
Okay, and would that be to the north of the apartment complex?
Yes.
All right, Sergeant Pfeiffer, just a topic that I want to talk about. It's just, stepping outside our discussion. Is there any Walmart located in this immediate vicinity?
Yes, there is.
Where is the Walmart located relative to the Jersey Meadow Apartments?
So if you were to come out onto 53rd Street and go east, like you had just described, that very next main thoroughfare is Elmore Avenue. And if you were to make a left northbound turn onto Elmore Avenue, you would be within just a few blocks of the nearest Walmart.
So if an individual was interested in purchasing Clorox, are there a number of businesses even beyond the Walmart where you could easily purchase Clorox if you lived there at the apartment complex?
Yes, there are. There are grocery stores and things like that.
Yeah, this is apparently one of the evidence they fought to get in, but this is 2020. Everybody bought either bleach or bleach wipes. Now they claim that this particular guy bought 2 cans or 2 bottles, but
So
I
what?
don't know the size of the bottles or anything, but he did this. I don't know if the same day after, 2 days later, a week later. That is not entirely clear. But that in itself is not evidence because everybody bought it in 2020.
I still buy it. I've got a huge jug of it in the laundry room.
Yeah.
We buy ammonia all the time too, and while Walmart has regular ammonia and lemon scented, so I mean we have 2 jugs.
Yeah, and I use it to clean a bathroom and the sink and everything because it's good. It does the job.
Yeah, I've just been pulling up a map of Davenport, trying to figure out where they're talking about. So that's about 53rd Street, Costco. I don't see a Walmart anywhere yet, but
they have 2 Walmart supercenters.
Yeah, I found a Costco pharmacy and a Portillo's hot dog, which is pretty good hot dogs.
Let's see here. Walmart supercenter.
There it is. Okay, I see it.
East and west of
right off I-74. So okay, now I know where they are.
Okay. I will just show people for demonstration. Show this. So where was I? There.
Yeah,
here is the I-74, and here is the Walmart. And it has photo center was not. 3.7 stars.
Pretty good for a Walmart.
Yeah.
Now Bing shows it as a 1 star. So.
Oh, yeah, but The one person in Davenport who uses Bing didn't like it.
Yeah.
All right, but now we know roughly where we are.
All right, now let's talk about the layout of the Jersey Meadow apartment complex. How's it structured?
When you originally pull into the apartment complex from 53rd Street, the road, there's two lanes. There's basically an inbound and an outbound to keep traffic running smooth within the complex. On your right-hand side is typically the inbound, and it goes to the north. There are multiple buildings on the right-hand side as you go in, which would be the east. In the center, there are garages every so many feet with a couple of cross-throughs. With respects to where the buildings are on each side of these lanes, some of the buildings are situated in an east-west fashion, and then there are buildings that are along the outer perimeters, and they're built longwise in a north-south fashion. So you have buildings basically going this way on the outer perimeter, and then there's some that are perpendicular.
Okay, I can actually show here. So yeah, it's Jersey Meadows apartment in Davenport,
Right next to Costco.
right next to Costco. And they are built exactly as he claims, East 53rd. And if you go East 53rd East,
You get to Elmore and you turn left on Elmore,
yeah,
and it takes you to Walmart.
yeah, yeah, okay. Now we know that. Because if they're not having any demonstratives, I might be doing this throughout the streams, because
Yeah.
otherwise I would have had no idea where they were. But okay, so it seems like he has to drive a bit out of his way to get. No, he doesn't. This is east of. It's about.
It's not that far from his
It's not that
apartment.
far, so it is in his direct vicinity. So if he was going to buy anything, it's either Costco or Walmart. So
Yep.
yeah, so yeah,
So I mean,
everything is
Davenport's
near.
large enough to have a Costco, so
Yeah, it's not far at all. So nothing of his travel is suspicious. It's just in relations to that a girl is missing that everything becomes suspicious. Okay, Atheist and Nick, they have a great demonstratives later on. Okay, thank you. But no spoilers, because I haven't seen anything of this. I only heard it was a bench trial, and I haven't covered a bench trial. This is the first bench trial. And something interesting happened later, and I will give no spoilers. But yeah, on day 4
I
or
mean,
day
he's
5 or
right in the
something.
middle of all kinds of good stuff.
Yeah, that's a good place to live.
Yeah. Yeah, you got Raising Cane's chicken fingers, Portillo's hot dogs, Chick-fil-A, Who Hot Mongolian Grill. That's good stuff.
Yeah, Dynasty Buffet, which has 3.9 stars. The Mongolians 4.3.
Yeah,
Okay.
Who Hot's pretty good.
Chick-fil-A 4.4. Yeah, Texas Roadhouse 4.5. I mean, I would live there. Well, no, not really. I would probably get myself a bit outside of the center, because I used to live in the center of a big city, and yeah, no, not again.
Yeah.
No.
We'd like to be even farther out from where we are.
I'm good here. I have about 100 yards to that neighbor and 150 yards to that neighbor.
Yeah.
It's amazing. I can play music. I can do anything I want in my backyard. And if anybody sees me, Yeah. Then you were looking in the wrong direction.
Yeah, we eventually want to get to that because there's
Mm.
plenty of open spaces here, but
Mm.
we're right on the edge of town now, but we would like
Mm.
to get out. For my wife wants to have an alpaca farm.
Oh.
She's like, I
Oh,
want
yeah.
alpacas. I was like, yeah, right.
I was thinking of getting Canada geese because
Oh
they are
God,
excellent
no, those things are
excellent guards.
yeah, they're annoying as
Geese,
hell.
uh, geese overall is good guardians, but Canada geese eats those murder snails.
Yeah, they're very, very territorial and
Yeah,
they are annoying.
yeah.
Like they walked down, we were driving out the other day of the neighborhood and there was like 12 of them walking, like a gang walking down the middle of the street. And then we got out on one of the main roads and on the next street behind them, there was another set walking like rival gangs or something walking down their streets. But yeah,
Yeah.
they were just like, yeah, we're going to just walk right in the middle of the road.
Yeah. Half Irish from Canada. Everybody hates our geese. Yeah, apparently. Yeah, but we are not here for farm animals. We are here for trial with some interruptions of fun stuff because this is a bit dull, but it's a bench trial. He's doing his job. Let's go back a few seconds.
This way on the outer perimeter, and then there's some that are perpendicular towards the center of the road.
The garages that you've described, do they essentially run in the center between that entry drive and that drive that you would take to exit the apartment complex?
Yes, they separate for the most part the in and outbound lanes.
Okay. Now, the apartments themselves, how many levels are there to any given structure where there's an apartment?
The structures are all identical in appearance of construction, and it is a two-story style, just a main floor, and then there's an upper floor.
Okay. If you lived in an upper level apartment, do you have to use a dedicated entryway and a common hallway to access your apartment, or is this complex different?
There are no common areas in this apartment complex. If you are on a second floor, the best way I can describe it is when you're looking at the buildings, you may not necessarily know if you're going into an upper or lower unit because the doors all appear the same. As soon as you open the door to an upper level unit, you're immediately faced with a stairwell. So the stairwells are encompassed within the actual dwelling.
Okay. Sergeant Pfeiffer, are you familiar with the layout of apartment number 8?
Yes.
All right. What I'd like to do, let's just draw a simple diagram so that we've got a perspective of that, and we'll just set that at the outset so that everybody understands the layout.
Oh, demonstratives, at least of the apartment. That we won't see.
That's okay. Basic diagrams are easy to understand. Now, Sergeant Pfeiffer, what I'd like for you to do is to just draw a basic layout of the apartment itself. And as you draw this diagram, place Costco.
Why would you want to draw it if you can have it prepared?
Yeah, why would you not have it printed out?
Yeah. He might be excellent drawer of diagrams, but I don't see the purpose of it if you can print it out.
Yeah, I don't understand.
Yeah, this is strange. But
yeah, even if it's just a basic computer print, just where you have boxes and lines to show, just basic.
Yeah, but maybe he's good at it, so it's not like in the Zachariah Anderson case where they drew the apartment and nothing was correct.
Yeah.
I mean, that was so stupid. But let's see how officer and for the day talented artist
In the diagram and the relationship of the building where apartment number 8 is and how that entry door would be situated relative to the Costco parking lot.
Oh, great. Away from the microphone.
This being south would be 53rd Street. We have our,
Please draw cock and balls.
we have our outbound lanes, in the idea complex.
Yeah, he got a. I mean, I'm looking at the road. He got a round off the top there, buddy.
Here in the center. And then we have apartment buildings in this sort of fashion. This is not a, I would say,
Yeah, it's not a very good sketch. I can tell from here.
Yeah.
If we call this 2744.
And the shaky board.
To the west.
If I had a marker, I would. I don't know. I don't have a whiteboard, but I could do it a lot quicker than he's doing it.
This being 2744, apartment 8 is over here. So that the east window on the second floor of this building
And for my next trick,
will
a
be roughly
dog.
here. Overlooking this parking lot. The main entry door, number 8, is over here. And when you open this door, there are
Seriously.
steps that come up into the apartment.
Having a printout and he could
Within
just
this apartment.
here
Yeah.
and here.
Come up the steps on the right-hand side, and that is the right-hand side of the unit.
As a judge, I would be
Come up into
pissed
the
off
living
because
area.
Yeah.
why is this guy drawing?
And you
he's
knew it was going to be
standing
a
in
bench
front-
trial, so I don't
Yeah.
understand why.
You have a,
You could have streamlined this a lot better, and then just not even number the buildings. Just have him then point out, okay, here's where 2740, whatever
Yeah.
it is.
Here's number 1, here's the last number, here's number
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah, here's
I mean,
yeah. Because there's like
Okay.
probably 25 buildings.
yeah, and he stood in the way for the judge.
Stairwell.
But it's close.
30 buildings.
The bed is situated mostly in the middle of this room. There's a closet on each side, and then you have the bathroom is contained within that bedroom. In this common area, you have your living rooms associated with this area. At the top of the stairs, there's the kitchen sink and cabinets.
He's like drawing the
Small little dinette area.
the apartment layout too.
All right, now go ahead and give us the rest of our directions. So we've got north to the top on our diagram, south is where on our diagram?
South you have down here.
Okay,
Then you have west. We have east over here,
Okay. Wait.
and this is where your Costco, you have a fence that runs very close to this property line near these buildings.
and that would be on the east side of the apartment
Yeah,
complex?
Inside of this entire complex, yeah, but notably where we have number 8. There's a fence, there's some little bit of a tree line there, and then Costco is right here on this far east side.
Okay, for purposes of our written record, if you're looking at the diagram, is west to your left or to your right?
West is the left.
And then east, is it to your right then?
Yeah.
All right. All right, now I want to go back. You'd indicated that when you go into the bedroom, there is a window. You described it as an east window. Is it actually an east-facing window or a west?
Faces the west.
It faces the west. Gotcha. All right. And then if you look out that window, what room would you be standing in?
You'd be in the bedroom.
Okay. And so then in looking out that window, are you going to be able to see cars that are parked out there in the parking lot?
Yes, you have a line of sight into this parking area.
Okay. And is it a clear line of sight?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead and take your seat.
Wait. So what's the apartment number? You say 2744? Because you can't see the Costco parking lot from that one.
All right.
You can see the back of the Costco.
Now, when you had responded out there, did you have any information about Breasia? You know, as far as information relative to the development of the child, whether or not she had any handicaps, whether or not she had a history of wandering off?
So some of my initial inquiries on my arrival were any sort of disabilities, habits or routines of running away. And what the summary provided to me included that she was half deaf and half blind.
Oh,
To
geez.
what degrees of that, I'm not sure, and it wasn't able to be articulated to me in any different terms than just that. With respects to running off, I was told by Aisha Langford, the mother of Breasia, that she does not run off. She would not leave an area unfamiliar. It wasn't something that she did even when she was at home in familiar territory.
How do you
She
know that?
was not something that
How do you know that as an officer? Through testimony? Yeah, but
No, it sounds like it's
I-
all hearsay at this point.
yeah, I would have objected to hearsay, but I'm not there, and I don't do criminal either. So yeah, but it sounds a lot like hearsay.
she had ever done.
And had you made inquiries about whether or not this was an area that the child had been to or was familiar with?
Yes,
And what information did you have about that?
that she had never spent any time there. They didn't have family there. There was no relation.
Okay, let's identify the involved parties then. Breasia Terrell. Who is Breasia Terrell's mother?
Aisha Langford,
Okay, what relationship does Aisha Langford have to Henry Dinkins?
they have children in common.
How many children?
One boy,
Okay, and then what are the
Well, then they have
initials
a
of that
in
child?
common.
DL.
Okay, how many children altogether does Aisha Langford have?
She had 3 at that time.
Okay, what are the initials for the oldest child, and is that child a girl or a boy?
CS, and he's a boy.
How old was CS at the time?
I believe 11 or 12.
Okay, all right, and then we'll figure that one out. And then how old was Breasia at the time?
10,
And then how old was her youngest brother?
8,
Okay, and what were the initials of her youngest brother?
DL.
Okay, is that the child that you'd indicated Henry Dinkins was the father of?
Yes,
All right, so to be clear, is Henry Dinkins the biological father of Breasia or the older child CS?
no.
Okay. What happened at the apartment complex? With the detective bureau responding out there, we've got patrol out there. Describe the developments.
Once an organized canvas was established, I had reached out to the upper command staff of the police department to express the needs for additional resources to expedite some of the organized canvas efforts. This coming now into the end of the afternoon and approaching the weekend, it was important to me to make sure we had resources secured, and the upper command of the police department began reaching out to surrounding agencies and looking for support because this incident was clearly not like anything else that we had encountered, and it appeared very significant based off the age and the lack of details surrounding any of it.
Okay, as the day progressed, given your experience as an officer and a detective, how were you feeling?
Objection, how are you feeling is vague and ambiguous.
Okay, did you have,
Abstain.
I'm sorry, Your Honor, did you have concerns about there being a successful outcome to this?
Yes,
Okay, all right. At the apartment complex then, was contact initiated with residents living at the various apartments?
yes,
If residents weren't home, was there any follow-up?
yes,
Did any residents have any information to provide that would assist in the investigation?
no,
Beyond just making contact with the residents of the various apartments, did you do any massive searches of buildings there at the complex?
yes. We obtained access to any apartments that were currently not leased. The management allowed a search of those units, as well as the garage units that were able to be opened. And then we reached out to the tenants to open up garages that we couldn't access.
Was Breasia located anywhere within the complex?
No,
Were there dumpsters out there at the complex?
yes,
And were dumpsters checked?
Yes.
And why would you check dumpsters?
Children can play in dumpsters, and after 2 decades of being in this line of work, sometimes bad things happen to children. They end up in dumpsters.
Okay. When you were going through, or law enforcement was going through dumpsters, was there anything that you noted in the dumpsters that even prompted a further line of inquiry?
No.
Okay. All right. And then outside the apartment complex, was there a major canvass done of that area?
Yes.
All right. Sergeant Pfeiffer, have you created a diagram of areas that's going to be the topic of discussion throughout the course of the trial?
Yes, I am.
Your Honor, may I approach the witness?
You may.
Okay.
So they have prepared actual diagrams, but they had to draw that one.
Sergeant Piper, I'm handing you what's marked as State's Exhibit number 38.
Maybe to show that he knew it from memory.
Yes, I do.
How do you
Yeah,
recognize it?
maybe.
I guess.
It is a map covering Scott County and Clinton County.
You mentioned Clinton County. Did the investigation proceed outside of Scott County at some point in time?
Yes, it did.
And then relative to Clinton County, does this map include areas in Clinton County that will become relevant to testimony offered throughout the course of the trial?
Yes, it does.
Now, this particular map, is it going to include locations that were identified throughout the course of the investigation where the defendant had been located traveling through?
Yes, it does.
Will there be different areas that will become points of interest that witnesses will be testifying to?
Yes, there are.
And Your Honor, at this time, the state will move to introduce State's Exhibit number 38.
At this point, I think it lacks foundation. The questions were, will witnesses be testifying to? And will witnesses be testifying to these locations and where they were? Until those witnesses testify to that, I think it lacks foundation.
Your Honor, I'll go ahead and lay some additional foundation. Detective or
Okay.
Sergeant Piper, were you involved in every aspect of this investigation?
That's kind
Yeah, I
of,
mean, if he has knowledge, she can have him lay the foundation, but
yeah,
I mean, she hasn't done it yet. So
yeah.
he's
And
he's
just,
only
oh,
talked
I-
about the apartment complex and where Costco is and the Walmart.
Yeah, and I can lay some more foundation. That tone was,
Yeah.
not the best in my opinion. I'm just going to check how long it will actually be.
So we got a break
Okay,
here in a few minutes, but
20 minutes, about
Yeah.
20 minutes. Yeah,
No.
Okay.
let's see if I can.
Were you involved
Go
at various
1.25
locations
now.
where there were investigations conducted here in Scott County around the apartment complex?
Yes, it was.
Were you involved in investigation activities that played out down in the area of Credit Island and River Drive?
Yes.
Were you involved in aspects of the investigation that played out in Clinton County?
Yes, it was.
Were you actually also involved in aspects of the investigation where the child's remains were later found?
Yes, it was.
So relative to all of the locations that are depicted on this diagram, are these locations that you are familiar with and you understand the relevance of these locations to the investigation?
Yes, I do.
All right, and then will it help the courts to understand various locations that will be discussed throughout this trial and provide a map of that?
I believe it will.
Your Honor, then the state will move to introduce State's Exhibit number 38.
I object if it's going to be offered to show evidence of where my client is purportedly traveled through this witness who has not shown foundation for that aspect of the exhibit yet.
Your Honor, the state would indicate that the witness is not going to be testifying to locations that Mr. Dinkins had traveled to. He's just going to basically explain the details of the map so that the court has a perspective of locations that are relevant to this investigation. As other details become important about where the Chevy Impala was identified as having traveled to.
But that's the same thing. This is the points of interest. Well, the point of interest correlate with where the Impala was. You have to lay a foundation for the drive of the Impala first. Not just saying, here's the point of interest. That's a reverse. You need to reverse the order. Let's see what the judge does.
Those details will only be testified to by the witness who was personally involved in that and is aware of that.
Anything further, Mr. Freeze?
as long as it's limited to sites where he has investigated, and it's not going to vouch for travel patterns, travel times, or locations where my client traveled. With that caveat, I have no objection.
Okay.
The exhibit will be admitted.
All right, Sergeant Price, I'd like you to come down to the diagram and then help us understand what is depicted here on this particular exhibit. All right, now at the bottom of the diagram, do you identify what counties are involved?
Yes, this is Scott in Clinton County.
Okay. As we look at the diagram as a whole, how would you describe what you have on that diagram?
The lower section of this map is Scott County and the municipalities contained within it. Over here on the left are Davenport, that north, smaller areas of Riverdale, Clare, to our southwest Buffalo. In this general area, as we traverse north, the city of Eldridge, Long Grove, Princeton, and McCausland and Downey are smaller incorporated areas within Scott County. The upper section towards the top of the map, as you can see this squiggly line here going from left to right is the Clinton Scott County border to our north. And if you go further north into Clinton County, the next municipal city is DeWitt, and then off to the east there is Comanche in the city of Clinton.
All right. That being said, do you have a directional legend on this exhibit?
Yes, it's noted here, kind of the lower right side, north being to the top of this map, south to the bottom, east to the right, and west is the left side.
All right. Have you in some way designated what areas of the map constitute the various municipalities that you've described?
The municipalities are identified by their actual name, and it's printed on the map.
Okay. Now, do you have an area on this exhibit entitled Legend?
Yes.
Okay. Are there a number of descriptors underneath the legend that will be utilized to describe just different information on this map that will become important?
Yes.
All right. So take us through the legend. What's the first entry under our legend?
The first item listed is
My cat just brought in a present.
Oh boy.
Yeah, that is down by my feet.
Dead or
I
alive?
need to take care of stuff here. I will keep playing, and you can comment on it. But
Is it
yeah.
a dead present?
No, it wasn't. It ran off.
Oh
No,
no.
there it is. He just played with it. No, it's. Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah, I'll continue playing this, and you can comment on it while I take care of this. Jesus Christ. Yep, everything happens in my stream.
Oh. We don't let our cats outside.
No, I have a farm, so I kind of have to. And yeah, I'll keep playing, and I'll take care of this. See you soon.
blue dot with some resemblance of a signal emission, signifying a cell phone event. Then the second is a yellow circle with a black ring around it, and it is for known locations. And when the additional witnesses testify, the congressional will expand on what those are in particularity. There's a section of points of interest where known residences of the people involved in this case are identified with a orange circle with a shadowed house in the center of it. And then there's a purple option that denotes an employer location. The three dots together will be for further testimony on routes of Mr. Dinkins. There is another kind of a yellow or orangish-red line with a circle in it that denotes sections of road that were under construction at the time that this event was happening. The next two lines are a series of dots and dashes and dots that are identifying construction zones within the map that are occurring at the time of this event. The next area is the pink boxes with pink shading, and those indicate areas that were canvassed by law enforcement efforts by a variety of different methods. Some are walked, canvassed on foot, done by multiple drones, there were state aircraft, Med-Force helicopters. There were many different mechanisms and strategies used depending on the terrain and the next thing notated in the legend was 2 gray lines with dots in it. And it's a county border indicator, which is only listed in this one particular area, the upper third of the map. And then the slightly beige shade area just signifies these incorporated areas, small towns or whatever they end up being within the 2 counties.
All right, so if you see a lightly shaded beige area, is there going to be the name of the city or municipality that's involved? All right, now let's talk about the lower portion of the diagram on the right side. Help us understand the distinction between what we see there versus the map that comprises a good portion of the diagram. What is that area going to focus on?
So this area here is more of a blown up version, which encompasses the area where Breasia Terrell was last seen alive.
That being what address?
2744 East 53rd Street. You can see the apartment complex and some of those other adjacent things that it explained in earlier testimony.
And then if we go to the top of the diagram, to what would be the left side, describe what that area is so that we have a perspective of that.
So this area in the upper left-hand corner of this map is a blown-out zoom version of this particular area, which is just north of the city of DeWitt within Clinton County. It's a slightly wooded area where the Kunau implement place is. That's a commercialized business that deals with the sales and service of farm implement equipment, major agricultural type things. And this area comes into concern. This is the location where the remaining.
Did I miss anything?
Okay,
Not really.
let's
It's
just
kind of
focus on
going
that if
over
we
the
could. Now, if you are heading
the
out of
legend.
Davenport, what street?
Sorry, what to say?
He just kind of walked through the different legend, the points in the legend and what they meant, the different eye colors and icons. And then he's talking about areas that I guess you can see the dark area in that top left corner of it's kind of a blown up, I guess, section of where some of these areas, I guess they've kind of blown up where they've searched maybe or expanded it.
Okay. So
Didn't
still,
miss anything.
no, so still things that should have gone in another way, but
I mean, if he had personal knowledge of where if he went to these areas, he could, he can testify to them. He just can't really say why he went. Maybe, well, we did this because this is where he went. These are just areas that we searched. And he said a couple of the points, he's like, will be discussed with further in later testimony. So yeah, he tried not to go too far.
Okay. What is going? Dirk, I'm guessing he was about 15 pounds lighter when I bought that suit. Maybe. No, well, that button is having a fight. Yeah, that button is having a fight.
I just don't even button mine anymore.
No.
I used to button it when I stood up in court, and nobody does it anymore. So I'm just like, I just leave it unbuttoned all the time. Yeah,
and I fluctuate about 20-25 pounds up and down. So I have jackets that fits all of it. Yeah. Okay. And by the way, I had to. As you do with cats when they catch something, good kitty, give food and candy, and then try to remove. No, he went to grab it when I tried, so I had to chase him around for a bit. Fun times.
Yeah, ours just finds like spiders, which is good, but he didn't catch the damn scorpion the other night that stung my neck, but I was laying there. I was playing Xbox on the living room floor, and I had just finished, and I started to doze off, and I felt something on the back of my neck. I thought it was a spider. I grabbed it and threw it. I thought it was a spider because it's kind of big. Never had a scorpion in 17 years here. Ooh. And they're very common, but never had one. And I threw it, and of course, then I get up looking for the spider and can't find it. So I'm going to lay on the couch, and it hurt. And as I'm looking, I can feel the venom, whatever was spreading in my neck, was burning. I could feel it spreading down my neck. Yeah. And so then I went to go lay on the couch, and it was on the couch cushion. And it was a damn scorpion. I was like, holy crap. So then I didn't have anything to get it with. My wife comes out of she was in the bedroom because she's on crutches, her knee brace. And she comes out, and I was like, I don't have anything to grab it with. I'm not going to grab it with my hands.
Mm.
And so I moved the couch cushion onto the floor, and I couldn't find the scorpion.
Oh,
And so, and so I'm like looking
Jesus
everywhere, and
Christ.
it blends in with the carpet. So I
Yeah.
put the stuff back, put the cushion back on the couch, and I'm like, it's looking around. I was like, okay, I'm going to check under the cushions. It had gotten underneath the cushion. It was on the bottom of the couch, like sitting on the bottom of the couch.
Ah.
So she then like threw a shoe to him. She had gone and grabbed a shoe, and I held it down. And she cut its tail off, and we killed it. So we actually have it in a Ziploc bag in the kitchen. But
Mm.
yeah, that I was sore for a couple of days. That
Yeah.
was so I'm like all night I didn't sleep because it
Mm.
happened at like 2:00 in the morning. So then I'm like, well, you have to wait because it can take a couple of hours for it to kick in, and you can have some sort of anaphylactic reaction. So I'm just laying there, and every little thing, I'm just like, okay, what's this?
Mm.
Is it going to get bad? But yeah, I was just sore for a couple of days, and that was about it.
Okay, that was a good reaction at least. Because ow, cat, mother. He's at my feet and is punishing me for throwing away his.
Oh, you threw away his prize.
Yeah. His his catch. So yeah, I'm. Yeah, but we don't have that long much further. So let's finish this off.
Would you be traveling on?
61
Okay, but in town, what's the name of the street?
Brady Street.
Is Brady a one-way or a two-way street?
It is a one-way divided street.
Going what direction?
North.
And if we're coming into town, then do you come into town on Brady?
It switches to Welcome Way once you come to 65th Street.
Okay, and then does Welcome Way then become our one-way going south?
It does.
All right, so if you head north on Brady Street out of town, you're going to be traveling on what highway?
61.
And then when you get to the area where you would, well, let me back off. Where is Clinton located relative to Scott County?
Clinton County itself is our direct neighbor to our north of our county line.
Okay, and on our map, is it going to lie to the east side of Scott County or the west side of Scott County?
Well, the county of Clinton is going to be directly on our north side. The city of Clinton will be off to the east.
All right, thank you. And then, so when you go up Highway 61 heading north, what exit would you take to travel east into Clinton?
We take the Highway 30.
All right, can you show us where Highway 30 is so that we've got a perspective of that?
Highway 30 is right here.
And then is it also labeled 30 so that we know that that's Highway 30?
Yes, so you see one identifier here, the traditional highway signal with a 30 in it.
Okay, if you were to continue traveling north past that exit onto Highway 30, how much further would you have to travel to the area of Kunow Implement where Breasia Terrell's remains were located?
From Highway 30 to the Kunow is 5 miles.
All right, and then what is the designation for the exit point there? What's the street number?
It's 270th Avenue would be the turnoff from Highway 61 to the Kunow.
Well, I'm not talking about the north-south streets. I want to know the east street at the top to the north. Just let me ask you this. Are you familiar with 212th?
Okay, you're here, I'm sorry.
Yeah, gotcha.
So, yes, 210th Street and 212th Street. So when you're coming up Highway 61, the initial street is 210th, it turns into 212th, the transition around.
Okay, and then, so then, is that the east-west street?
Yes.
Okay, is that all a rural area?
Yes.
All right, and then is there a north-south street that runs on the west side of the property where Kunow is located?
So 218th Street runs mostly north. This particular geographic area has that curve in it. So
Right, absolutely.
in between some of it, so this being hard north, some of these streets are at a bit of a bias.
Okay, and then on the east side of the property, when we talk essentially about what we're going to call a north-south street, what would be that street?
270th Avenue runs right on the east side of the Kunow.
All right, now, do you have Interstate 80 depicted on this diagram so that we understand its location?
Yes, Interstate 80 is the orange line running here just at the northern portion of the city of Davenport, metro limits,
For purposes of our written record, Interstate 80 runs what directions?
east and west.
And then is there a north-south highway that can be utilized to travel along the westernmost border of Davenport?
Yes, Highway 280, Interstate 280 connects Interstate 80 north and south to the state of Illinois or River Drive, multiple exits on the west side of the city of Davenport.
If you take Interstate 280, will that allow you access to the area of River Drive?
Yes.
And then for purposes of our written record again, what's located on our southernmost border?
Consider the Mississippi River.
Okay. Does the Mississippi River run along the southernmost border of Scott County?
Yes, it does.
All right. And then finally, is there a highway, a north-south highway that somebody can use to travel along what would be an eastern boundary line between Davenport and Bettendorf?
Interstate 74 would be that main interstate thoroughfare on the east side of Davenport, goes into the western side of the city of Bettendorf. It's identified on this particular map as a orange line, extending from the Mississippi River as far north as Interstate.
Now, I want to talk about the legend. There's entries to identify locations where there was construction. Why is that relevant?
It's relevant in this particular case because on 53rd Street between Eastern Avenue and Highway 61, Brady Street, conversely, the eastbound portion of 53rd Street was demolished under construction at the time of the
So would that potentially impact somebody's direction of travel?
Yes, it does.
All right. Is there another area where there was construction that should be noted that would potentially impact somebody's direction of travel?
Most notably down in the southwest part of the city of Davenport. If you're coming in River Drive, there was a major bridge replacement that took place. So if you're taking River Drive, you're going to take that to Bluegrass, for instance, out of the west side of our city. There was significant detours. That bridge was being replaced at that time, so you would have to take alternate routes around that in some fashion.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead and take your seat.
She should be wearing sleeves.
Sergeant Piper,
Yeah.
are there other maps that have been
She
generated
is not
that would
30
help us
anymore.
understand the layout of various locations?
Yes, there are.
All right. Did you generate
Aerial maps of the area around Kunal Implement.
Yes, I did.
Your Honor, may the record reflect, I'm showing you what this one has been marked as State's Exhibit. Do you recognize State's Exhibit 41?
Yes, I do.
How do you recognize State's Exhibit 41?
That is the location of the Kunal implement situated just north of the city of DeWitt.
And does this map give us a perspective of the layout of Kunal Implement to the area where Breasia's remains were found?
Yes, it does.
Your Honor, the state would move to introduce this exhibit into the record.
If I could just see it briefly.
Absolutely. And then, Sergeant Piper, for purposes of perspective, when was this particular map made as far as time of year?
The best we can come up with this one, this was not a drone image that we had made. And on the GIS site that we use, there's a version with leaves on and leaves off. And this is just the leaves off. So the exact time of year, I do not know on that particular one.
Does this particular image comport with what the site would look like in March of 2021 when Breasia's remains were recovered?
Yes.
Your Honor, at this time, the state would move to introduce this exhibit 41.
No objection.
All right.
The exhibit will be admitted.
Sergeant Piper, come on down, and I'd like for you then to walk us through this. Let me get this turned over if I could. All right, now, do you have a directional indicator on this map?
There is one in the lower right-hand corner of this document. There's a notation of north. So in this particular map, the way it is situated, north is up here at the top, south is at the bottom, east is on the right, and west is over here on the left.
Okay, as you look at the map, do we see Highway 61 depicted?
Yes, again, Highway 61 is the curvature right here, but the northbound lanes would be on the right side, southbound lanes would be these here on the left. And you'll see two vehicles pointing south.
Is the northbound and southbound lanes of traffic divided by some type of median there along Highway 61?
Yes, there's a grassy median that separates those.
Now, on US Highway 61, if you're heading north, does it show you the exit that you would take to the area of Kunal Implement?
There's no major signage for it. There's a turnoff. This is a very rural area. But this area you see here with 212th Street is where you would make a right-hand turn to arrive at the Kunal location.
And if you turn, make a right-hand turn, what direction are you traveling?
You're starting to go back to the east.
You had mentioned 212th and 210th Street as having a relationship with one another. Is that shown there on the map?
Yes, it's more clear here. You see where 212th Street is the name of the street, and back to turnoff. And as you continue further east, you would transition into 210th Street without any significant changes over the road.
Is this whole area to the north, to the east, to the west, and even to the south, is that all rural area?
Yes, this is all farmland.
All right. Now then, show us where 218th is on the map so that we understand its relationship to Coonhow Implement.
218th Street is the, lack of a better term, it's kind of the frontage road, if you will, to access this Coonhow area and travel back into, it would take you back out into the way.
Sure. And which side of the property is it located relative to Coonhow Implement?
It is more towards the west side.
All right. And then on the east side of the property, the north-south street, can you show us what that street is?
So here, we got a gravel road depicted by 270th Avenue on this map, and that is your the east boundary running north and south.
Does this exhibit depict the area where Breasia Terrell's remains were found?
Yes, it does.
Explain.
So in the lower portion of this implement property, what you see here on this map represents what I saw there that day when she was found. And you can see this darkened area in the center here, in between 207th Avenue and 218th Street. There's somewhat of a pond area there with water in it. There's a heavily wooded line around this area. It follows the line of the gravel roads. It is, this particular view would give you the lead off version of this aerial view. But you can see there's a small gravel drive.
Yeah, sorry. Someone is being stupid on Twitter, and we can't have that. Sorry. Yes, I listened to this too, but someone was stupid on Twitter, so I had to act on it.
Yeah. You hard to see once you're close to it. But this is an access road that it drops in elevation significantly. It's steep, and it comes down into this area. So this area down here along the pond area is much lower than what is up here at grade level where the road is. It was explained to me by the folks that work here. This is storm water runoff. Sorry, for this particular area to rainfall.
Given the steep grade to that access road, what would you have concerns about driving just a passenger car down into that area?
Yes.
Why?
It's steep, and there are it's pretty abrupt. I guess driveway apron, if you will, coming from the gravel down into there. I would be concerned about scraping.
Sure. And where were Breasia's remains found?
So the best way to describe it for this particular view is you're coming down this access road here, just a little up, and it would be kind of north of this little gravel roadway. Her body was found under some trees.
Okay.
Yes, Ms. Cunningham, I believe this is a good time to break for lunch.
Yes.
We will reconvene at 1:30 this afternoon. Thank you.
I've been trying to figure out where in the world they are.
Yeah, I'm
Like
looking
clicking and
at
dragging
the-
all over. I think I kind of know the area, but I
It
may have-
is
it's just
northeast.
yeah, it's
some-
northeast, like 210th Street, somewhere around 200. I'd have found 215th Avenue. I have yet to find a 212th Street.
I see Z16, East 61st, East 60th.
Or 218th Avenue. I can't find any of those. I found a 215th Avenue
Mm,
and a 210th Street, and
yeah,
it goes out. It's just farmland out there. So
yeah. And there's a lot of streams and small rivers.
yeah,
And yeah, I'm not entirely sure where they are. But yeah, that was the state's opening statement, and it was the first witness because the defense chose to not have an opening statement, which means that I don't know exactly what it means, but they are might not be denying the actual evidence, just what the evidence shows.
yeah.
And so they have no need for
What the?
an opening statement.
Why are you biting my arm, you fat bastard?
He was he heard about my cat, and now he's
He must have.
yeah.
Jeez. He just said it's just arr, 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 on my arm.
Yeah. Yeah, mine does that too. If I pet him for longer than 90 seconds, then it's full attack on whatever limb I have
Yeah.
out. And yeah, but as for now, he chose to lay down in the middle of my bed.
Of course. It's his
Yeah,
bed now. It's his
yeah,
bed.
it's his bed now. Listen here, it's me. I'm the. Yeah, I'm sleeping here now. Yeah. Yes. Sorry, Farrell. Yeah,
Yeah,
we shouldn't pick on our cats. It's their home. It's their channels, and we are just guest starring.
yeah. It's his world, and we're just living in it.
Yeah. Well, so far, how do you? I mean,
It's,
h-
it's been pretty dry so far. I mean, he's just kind of the absolute basic foundation right here.
yeah,
I mean, the prosecution's been asking leading questions, but you're just getting background information. It's not a big deal, but kind of drives me crazy a
yeah,
little bit when you hear some of the questions, and it's kind of really long question with all of these little details. You did this and this and this and this, and it's like, well, yes, it shouldn't be
it should,
necessarily
the question should be shorter than the answer.
it should be open ended. So, okay,
Yeah,
what did you do next? You
yeah,
know, what, especially like within a apartment complex. And it was like, she was like, did you do this? And it's a yes. Well, I said, well, what did you do next? And okay. And then what was your next step?
mm,
And let him walk through it. But she's kind of dragging him along,
yeah,
which, I guess defense, I mean, it's going to come in anyway,
yeah,
but just do it right.
yeah. But it doesn't take longer to do it right.
No.
I mean, you ask the short questions, and then he speaks, and then what?
Yeah.
And then what? What if any?
Yeah. Hey, Elaine.
Yeah. But either way, grift some more. I heard that you are getting close to monetization.
Close. I'm at like 385 subscribers. I haven't put much out, which would probably help. I just haven't had time.
Mm.
I've wanted to do stuff right around the time my wife tore her ACL about a month ago,
Oh,
and so and we actually went to the orthopedic doctor today, and he was telling her, well, the report says it's a partial tear. He said, but I think it's completely torn. She started messing around with it, and
mm,
he wants her to do like 6 weeks of therapy with a brace, 6 weeks without a brace, then do
yeah.
surgery,
Oh,
and then it's
wow.
going to be another like 6 to 9 months after that.
Mm,
So she's looking at about a year before she's back to normal.
yeah.
And
Yeah, I
so,
know. I'm still suffering from my meniscus tear, and
I've done that twice.
yeah, because 2 years ago I broke my ankle,
Oh,
and apparently I started to walk funny after that,
mhm.
which then my meniscus in the same leg
Yeah.
started to fork up. But here they choose not to operate, because with the correct physical therapy, it takes just as long as
Yeah.
as a surgery.
It can.
It can, yeah. But still
Yeah.
doing that, and apparently I've been walking wrong again, because now my right knee is
Oh,
yeah. So now I have more physical therapy in front of me
yeah.
to save both my knees. That's
Yeah.
fun. Growing old, yay!
Yeah. I don't have much cartilage left in my right knee. I've had 2 surgeries on it. So at night when I walk through the house,
Hmm.
I can't sneak up because it pops with every step. It's like pop, pop.
Yeah.
So I can't sneak around. And then my left knee's been, it bothers me more now too. But I have a feeling one day I'm probably going to need at least one replacement. But
Yeah, I hope. Yeah, I'm hoping that physical therapy can do it for me. But you're getting older.
Yeah.
You don't heal up as you did when you were a teenager.
Years of playing baseball and
Yeah,
stuff kind of got to me.
Yeah, I was a goalkeeper in soccer, handball, and hockey. So yeah, I was mainly a goalkeeper because they couldn't have me near opponents.
Too violent.
A bit too violent, and eventually I went into the handball because it was at least 6 yards between me But when they jump in,
Yeah.
I kind of jumped up on them.
Yes.
And then I got red carded, and because I'm not supposed to do that, and I argued against the referee that they are inside my area. I can.
Yeah.
But he was
Should, yeah.
crying, and I was sent off. I think I still have the record of sent off on a season as a goalkeeper
awesome.
in my region.
It's like, like Happy Gilmore, only one to try to stab a guy with a skate.
Yeah. Fun times. All right. Let's see here. Is anybody else up? So I can send you to Cheesy Wisnut, his late night print stream, or
He's
to
got that 3D
Good
printer.
Logic.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw what he made Dave, that Darth Vader.
Yeah, I saw that. That
cool.
was amazing. Yeah. Let's see here. Redirect to, because Cheesy needs watch hours and subscribers. He needs that more than Good Logic. Joe can handle himself. All right, that was part of day 1. Tomorrow I will start at 8 or 9 a.m. Eastern.
Okay.
This is it, because Western will then be more or less in the middle of the night. But I want to catch up on this trial during the weekend, so I kind of have to start early.
Which is fine. I'm on the road in the morning, but as long as I have signal, I can at least I can be here in an avatar maybe.
Yeah. Okay, and I will send you the link, so if you can come on, you can. If you can't, you can't. But it's Friday tomorrow, and it's going to be 6, 7, 8 hours on 1.25 or 1.5 if I can. So I can, and then a few hours of rest before my final Friday, which I will send you a link to as well.
Yeah, Friday nights are good. Yeah, we have a Taekwondo class at 6 or I think it's 6 our time. We're usually I get the kids in bed, since I'm having to do it all myself now. For now, it's usually about 9:30 before I'm done with them.
Oh, okay. By then, because I usually start at 11 p.m. my time, which is 5 p.m. Eastern.
Yeah.
That way I'm done
exactly
right around when everybody else starts drinking and streaming, and I can send everybody off and stuff like that.
Yeah, and if I'm the last couple of weeks, everybody has gone to Taekwondo to watch. If I'm the only one taking my daughter, then I can probably jump on. I can sit out in the car, but when everybody else is around
Well, I believe I understand why Excited Utterance is happy for me streaming at this time of night, because at her over there in the imaginary country, it's afternoon.
It's mid-afternoon for her. Yep.
Well, it might not be 80% of my audience is American, so I kind of have to go by that.
Yeah, right, and it's hard figuring out times to do it here, because by the time I get the kids to bed, usually I'm exhausted after a full day, and then coming home and being mom for a few hours, because she can't. The doctor is like, she doesn't want her to drive for 6 weeks. So
I can understand why. I didn't have that luxury.
Man,
I had to drive around with my leg in a cask. That was it, and I drive stick.
Oh man, I've been there. Yeah, I have done that with knee issues.
Yeah, I borrowed my neighbor's automatic, but every time I put my foot down, the space was too small, so I kept hitting the brake. Yeah. So avoid breaking your ankles and tearing your ACLs and meniscus. It's a really, really bad idea.
She's too old to be doing Taekwondo. She heard it in Taekwondo, but yeah.
One of my bosses, he plays not land hockey, but land bandy, or whatever you call it, indoor bandy, indoor hockey, or something like that. And he's in his late 50s. And yeah, he tore both his the jointment on the side.
So you
of
got
the knee.
the ligaments. So you got the ACL or the
not the ACL, outside,
MCL and
the outside of the knee.
the
Those
LCL.
that attach muscles
yeah.
or whatever it's
the
called. I don't
tendon,
know what it's called in English.
Um,
And he tore on both sides of the knee.
oh,
So
the
he's
oh goodness.
yeah.
Yeah, you got like the IT band on the outside. I can't remember what the full name is, but that one's not fun.
Ligaments, knees. Let's see here.
But for the ligaments, you've got the LCL that keeps your knee from buckling outward. The MCL keeps it from going in. And then you have
the patellar ligament.
Patella tendon. Oh, good Lord.
Yeah.
Yeah, that
On
holds the
both.
kneecap in place.
Yeah.
That's
so,
fun.
Apparently not, because he's now surgery, and
Yeah.
he described it as a construction site when they try to piece everything together again.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. I've known some that have torn multiple ligaments. Full reconstruction, and that takes a long time to get back.
Yeah, but he only works in an office, so he can still work. But either way, I mean, they claim it's because about my injuries. Well, it's not because I'm overweight, because I am. It doesn't help. But everything. Nobody taught me how to walk right after my after I broke my ankle, and here we are, 2 years later, and
you start to compensate for it, and that's what happens. Like people hurt their back, and so you start to compensate one way, and their back hurts on the other side, and it gets worse, and your legs does the same thing. You start to favor one side, and
but I will send everybody else off to Shizi, so you can help him get watch hours and stuff. Oh, thank you, Wendy, gifting 5 memberships. Thank you so much.
Yes.
To Rob Mill, Mads, Chas Berglund, John Gordon, and JD Truth Seeker. JD Truth, I think, is new. The rest is returning.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Wendy. And there's members only content. I actually there's one new 1-minute video about what I did this week, and there's a link to my Discord. Okay. Well, thank you for showing up.
Oh, no.
And I will keep sending you the link throughout the weekend and everything. So if you can, you can. If you can't, you can't.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, that'll be fun.
Okay. Thank you all for showing up.
Right.
Thank you for showing up, and go subscribe and watch and like everything he has done. And I'll see you all tomorrow. Okay.
Good night, everybody.
Bye-bye.